Chapter 121. Chapter 121 Blood Fiend Rock. Little brother, I've already told you everything. Shouldn't you fulfill your promise and let me go? Lu Jiwu stole a glance at the young man in front of him and said with a fawning smile. Of course I'll keep my word. Hearing these words, Lu Jiwu's face immediately revealed a joyous expression. However, there was a trace of coldness hidden deep within his eyes. He coldly said in his heart, if I don't die this time, I will return the old and new grudges to you double when Big Brother and the rest return. Glancing at Lu Jiwu from the corner of his eyes, Zhuowen's lips curled into a mocking smile. Soon after, Yuan power burst forth from his right hand and struck Lu Jiwu's lower abdomen. With a creak, Lu Jiwu clutched his abdomen as he squatted on the ground in pain. You destroyed my dantian. You actually didn't keep your promise, Lu Jiwu said in a low voice as he clutched his abdomen and looked at the young man in front of him with a ferocious expression. I said that I wouldn't kill you. I only crippled your dantian. I didn't violate the agreement. Zhuowen shrugged and said indifferently. At the same time, Han Shui and the rest also came over. As they looked at the tall and straight figure in front of them, a look of reverence appeared on their faces. Little brother, thank you for saving me. I heard from Feng Yu and the others that your name is Xiao Sei. Han Shui carefully sized up the young man in front of her as she spoke with a hint of uncertainty in her voice. The armor on the surface of his body slowly faded away, revealing a rather cold young face. Zhuowen smiled and said, no need to thank me. My purpose for coming here this time is only for the mysterious treasure, and I helped you along the way. Now that I know the exact location of the mysterious treasure, I won't stay for long. After hearing Zhuowen's words, Han Shui felt as though a rock had been lifted from her heart. In fact, she did not believe that a stranger would save her mercenary group for no reason. However, after hearing Zhuowen's explanation, she felt a little more at ease. Lu Jiwu's dantian has been crippled. He's now a cripple. I'll leave him to you. I'll take my leave first. With that, Zhuowen turned into a black bolt of lightning and gradually disappeared from everyone's line of sight without even looking back. Han Shui stared at the back of the figure that gradually disappeared into the distance. Somehow, she felt that the figure gave her a sense of déjà vu. Brat. Why didn't he acknowledge Han Shui just now? To be honest, Han Shui's figure was definitely a peerless beauty. Coupled with her pretty face, it would be difficult for any man to reject her. Moreover, before we parted last time, she seemed to have given you a hint of ambiguity. If you reveal your true identity, this woman will be within your reach. Xiao Hei's voice slowly rang out in his mind. There was a hint of mischief in her voice. Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, you're in the mood to talk about this. The most important task now is to obtain the holy rune of ice fire. Furthermore, I'm destined to leave Vine Armor City in the future. If I really want her, I'll be letting her down. Brat, you're quite principled. You're right. The holy rune of ice fire is the most important task now. The map that you obtained from the white-clothed youth seemed to have a more detailed description of the blood evil rock. Xiao Hei said with a smile. The map's description is quite detailed. According to the map's introduction, the Blood Evil Rock is actually a small valley located at the border between the outer and inner areas of the Annihilation Forest. As there is a blood-colored rock at the entrance of the small valley, it was named the Blood Evil Rock. Furthermore, there are many meta beasts inside. Even if a young corporeal realm warrior were to enter, he would be at a disadvantage. Zhuowen silently recalled the introduction on the map and said in a low voice. It seems that the Blood Evil Rock is not a good place. However, according to Lu Jiwu, the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance have already brought many people into the Blood Evil Rock. When you enter the Blood Evil Rock, don't make a fuss. Just wait and see. Xiao Hei said with a hint of seriousness. Zhuowen responded faintly. Immediately, his speed increased by a large margin. After a while, Zhuowen followed the route on the map and arrived at a small valley. Looking at the blood-colored rock at the entrance of the small valley, Zhuowen knew that the small valley in front of him was the Blood Evil Rock, which was their destination. As soon as he arrived at the entrance of the Blood Evil Rock, Zhuowen immediately smelled a strong scent of blood. His expression turned slightly cold and he became even more vigilant. He knew that the Blood Evil Rock was much more dangerous than the outer areas of the Annihilation Forest. After passing through the entrance, a small path in the forest suddenly appeared in front of him. However, the scene on the path made Zhuowen's heart skip a beat. On the path, there were corpses dripping with blood. There were meta-beasts and human ancient martial art practitioners. However, meta-beasts made up the majority of the corpses. Countless internal organs were scattered on the path. The cherry-red blood seemed to have gathered into a stream of blood in the grooves of the path. The pungent smell of blood almost filled the entire path. Smelling the strong scent of blood on the path, even Zhuowen couldn't help but frown. Seeing that the blood on the path hasn't dried up yet, it's obvious that there was a huge battle here. The Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance should be not far ahead. You have to be careful. I have already helped you conceal your aura. As long as you don't completely expose yourself, it will be difficult for others to discover you. Xiao He said in a cautious tone. Zhuowen nodded slightly. His footsteps became even lighter. At the same time, his nerves became extremely tense. After about an hour, Zhuowen finally passed through the hell-like path. During this time, he also met some meta-beasts that were lucky enough to survive. However, in order not to waste time, he didn't get entangled with them too much. After walking out of the path in the forest, just as Zhuowen was about to continue moving forward, a faint human voice suddenly came from afar. Listening carefully, Zhuowen felt that the voice was coming from the left. Slowly squatting down, Zhuowen's footsteps became even lighter. He slowly walked towards the left. As he got closer, the human voice became louder and louder. Finally, Zhuowen stopped in a lush shrub. Through the gaps in the shrub, what appeared in front of him was a wide open space. At this moment, there was a fierce battle happening on the open space. There were nearly 100 people on the open space. They were mainly divided into two camps. The majority of them were dressed as mercenaries. It was obvious that they were from the Mercenary Alliance. In front of the Mercenary Alliance, there was a tall middle-aged man whose clothes were decorated with many sharp knives. Zhuowen could feel that this strangely dressed middle-aged man was faintly emitting an extremely terrifying aura. This aura had definitely reached the corporeal yang stage. This middle-aged man should be the leader of the Mercenary Alliance, Qian Shang. It was said that this person was originally a small mercenary in an unknown mercenary group. Later on, he had a fortuitous encounter and his strength skyrocketed. In order to prevent the mercenaries of Luchuan town from being oppressed by the Lu family, he organized and established the Mercenary Alliance. This person had a very high status in the hearts of the mercenaries and was extremely powerful. The other camp had fewer people, but their attire was surprisingly uniform. It wasn't as messy as the Mercenary Alliance. Zhuowen knew that this should be the Lu family's men. At the head of the Lu family's men stood two similar middle-aged men. These two men should be the Lu family's head, Lu Jitian, and the second in command, Lu Jiwen. Both of them were at the corporeal yang stage. Lu Jiwen's aura was slightly weaker. Zhuowen could feel that Lu Jiwen's strength was about the same as Yan Jie's in the Hall of Punishment. They should both have just entered the corporeal yang stage. On the other hand, Lu Jitian's aura was much more profound. Zhuowen could feel that Lu Jitian's aura was the same as the middle-aged man at the head of the Mercenary Alliance. It gave off an unfathomable feeling. Zhuowen guessed that these two people should be experts who had already condensed corporeal armor. Opposite this group of people, there was a meta-beast that was as huge as a small mountain. It stood quietly in front of them. However, the meta-beast was covered in injuries and it was obvious that it had gone through a fierce battle. Behind the meta-beast was a deep cave. "Kid, I can feel that the ice fire's sacred symbol is in the cave. You must get that thing. Xiao He, who was originally silent, suddenly shouted excitedly in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded heavily. Then, he quietly watched the battle in the open space. The meta beast on the open space was at least at level 2. Even a corporeal Yang stage martialist would have a hard time dealing with it. However, it still couldn't resist the siege of so many martialists. Countless meta force fluctuations accompanied by monstrous meta beast roars sounded from the open space. Looking at the meta beast, whose movements were getting slower and slower, Zhuowen knew that the meta beast was about to reach the end of its life. Finally, a mournful wail sounded. The meta beast, which was like a small mountain, finally fell heavily to the open space after being bombarded by so many martialists. When the Yuan beasts fell, the two brothers, Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen, looked at each other. Then, they turned into ghosts and rushed into the cave. The middle-aged man from the Mercenary Alliance, who was covered in small knives, didn't want to be outdone. He quickly followed the two brothers and turned into a black shadow and disappeared into the cave. After the three of them disappeared into the cave, the remaining people stood in the open space and didn't move. Obviously, they had received orders from their leaders. Looking at the deep cave, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to rush into the cave, Xiao He's voice suddenly sounded. Wait! Kid, there's something strange in the cave. If I'm not wrong, Tyrant Blood isn't completely dead yet. The three of them who just entered will soon suffer. Zhuowen was stunned. His body, which was about to move, stopped as he stared at the deep cave in front of him. As time gradually passed, an earth-shattering explosion sounded from the cave. Soon after, three miserable figures appeared in front of everyone. The three of them were the Lu brothers and the leader of the Mercenary Alliance, Qian Shang. Their clothes were tattered and their faces were pale. It was obvious that they had suffered in the cave. Xiao He. What should we do now? Zhuowen asked Xiao He softly. He knew that Xiao He's origin energy had been used up again. It would take another 2 months for her to recover. Therefore, with her current strength, it was impossible for her to be a match for Lu Jitian and the others. The ice fire sacred symbol isn't in their hands. It's obvious that they didn't succeed in the cave. Now is our chance. Chapter 122. The Oriole is behind. I have a concealment technique that can allow a cultivator to become invisible for a short period of time. However, this technique consumes a lot of my source strength. If I use it this time, I'm afraid that I will become extremely weak. Xiao He said with some hesitation. Is the price very serious? Zhuowen stared blankly at Xiao He, who had a serious expression on her face. Yes. So this time, you must succeed in obtaining the holy symbol of ice fire. As long as I obtain the holy symbol, my source strength will recover and even stabilize. The expression on Xiao He's face became rather serious. She waved her little claws gently and a strange ink-black energy immediately enveloped Zhuowen's body. When the energy gradually receded, Zhuowen's body seemed to have turned into thin air. Kid, the rest is up to you. I can't help you at all now. Xiao He's eyes were filled with exhaustion. She looked deeply at Zhuowen before turning into a black light and entering between her eyebrows. Don't worry. This time, I will definitely take back the holy symbol of ice fire. Zhuowen nodded heavily and quietly came out of the bushes, slowly approaching the cave entrance in front of the open space. In front of the cave, the Lu brothers and the Mercenary Alliance's leader, Qian Shang, were all in a very sorry state. Moreover, there was still a trace of lingering fear on their faces. Zhuowen's footsteps were very light. When he was only 10 steps away from the three of them, he could clearly hear their voices. I didn't expect that there would be a restriction placed in the cave. Fortunately, the restriction's power was not strong. Otherwise, even if the three of us joined forces, we might have been seriously injured. Lu Jitian, who was standing at the front, said with a frightened expression. Did you see the situation inside the cave? Qian Shang, who was covered in small knives, turned his head and asked indifferently. Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen both looked at Qian Shang with fear. After a moment of silence, Lu Jitian finally said, before the restriction was triggered, I could see what seemed to be a human figure inside the restriction. It seems like that's the case. What I saw was similar to what you guys saw. It was also a human figure that was filled with a bloodthirsty light. However, its aura was very weak. It should be very seriously injured. Qian Shang nodded lightly and said with a smile. In other words, the one who fell from the sky 2 months ago was a human? How is that possible? Judging from the direction where the blood light fell, it should be Heavenly Cliff. You should know the height of absolute sky cliff. Even if a warrior of the Zhao King realm fell, he would definitely die, Lu Jiwen said in disbelief. You're right. Even if it's a Zhao King realm martial artist, it's impossible for them to survive after falling into Heavenly Precipice Cliff. But what if it was a cultivator whose strength had surpassed the precipice and reached the Ultimate Emperor realm? After all, Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators can already walk through the air for a short period of time, and the 4 exalted realm cultivators can walk through the air as if they were walking on flat ground. Heavenly Precipice shouldn't be a problem for these cultivators, right? I didn't expect this matter to involve cultivators of this level. Are we still going to go in? Lu Jitian frowned. The 3 of them were only at the corporeal yang stage. Cultivators above the Ultimate Emperor realm were like a chasm to them. Qian Shang glanced at Lu Jitian and sneered, so the Lu family head is not much? With just this level of strength, you plan to be a coward? You. Before Lu Jitian could speak, Lu Jiwen, who was beside him, was furious. He wanted to step forward but was blocked by Lu Jitian. Lu Jitian looked indifferently at Qian Shang and said, what plan does leader Qian Shang have? After all, this matter involves an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. We have to consider this carefully. Hee. I'm certain that the cultivator in the cave is severely injured. Otherwise, with his strength, when the 3 of us entered the cave for the first time, he could have killed us directly. But he didn't and used a restriction to stop us. This means that the cultivator is extremely weak. As long as the 3 of us work together, we can definitely kill the cultivator in the cave. A Radiant King realm cultivator is able to rule over a low-level city. One can only imagine how rich an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator would be. As long as we work together to kill the cultivator in the cave, the rewards we will receive will be unimaginable. Qian Shang's body couldn't help but tremble when he said this. He was very excited to be able to kill a legendary Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Although it was only a heavily injured cultivator. Qian Shang's words also made Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen, who were standing in front of him, feel a little tempted. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw greed in each other's eyes. What do the 2 of you think? Do you want to work with me? If we succeed in killing that cultivator, we will split the rewards. How about it? Qian Shang spread his hands and chuckled. All right. We suffered a loss just now. Now that we know what's inside the cave, our chances of success should be very high. Lu Jitian nodded and agreed. Since that's the case, let's go in. Qian Shang nodded when he saw that Lu Jitian had agreed and immediately rushed into the cave. Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen glanced at each other. Unwilling to be outdone, they turned into 2 shadows and entered the cave. After the 3 of them disappeared into the cave, an illusory figure loomed at the entrance. This figure was Zhuoan, who had used a concealment technique. Looks like your guess was right. Ba Shui is still alive. Zhuoan said softly. However, he's not far from death. From the conversation between the 3 of them, we can tell that Ba Shui is indeed on the verge of death. I never thought that a 4th Reverend Realm cultivator would die at the hands of 3 corporeal Yang Realm cultivators. How ironic. Xiao Hei's voice slowly rang out. Her voice was filled with schadenfreude. All right. Let's go in too. Although Ba Shui is at the end of his rope, he's still not that easy to deal with. Looks like we can be the Oriole this time. After saying that, Zhuowen's illusory figure suddenly turned into nothingness and entered the cave. The cave wasn't deep. Zhuowen only took a few steps before he reached the end. As Zhuowen approached, he could hear the sounds of fighting coming from the depths of the cave. He knew that Lu Jitian and the other two had already encountered Ba Shui. Quietly turning the last corner, a rather spacious open space appeared in front of him. There was a small pile of hay in the corner of the open space, and a tall figure was quietly sitting cross-legged on top of the hay. Zhuowen took a closer look and immediately recognized the figure sitting on top of the hay. It was Ba Shui, whom he had been looking for. At this time, Ba Shui's aura was very weak, and his exposed body was badly mutilated. If one didn't look carefully, it would be impossible to imagine that the body in front of him was a human body. In the open space, there was a tall blood-red figure standing in front of Ba Shui. The blood-red figure had long blood-red hair and held a long blood-red saber in his hand. It was Ba Shui's armor spirit manifestation. Looking at the blood-colored human figure that was only a few dozen feet tall in the middle of the empty ground, a strange look appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. He still clearly remembered that the blood-colored human figure that the tyrant blood had summoned outside Rotten Armor City was almost a few hundred feet tall. It was like a small mountain, and almost every move it made had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. But now, not only was the blood-red figure only a few feet tall, its power was only at the corporeal yang realm. It was obvious that Ba Shui was really at the end of his rope. Boom! With a loud bang, the yuan power in the middle of the empty ground surged out like a tidal wave. Immediately, the blood-colored figure involuntarily retreated a dozen steps under this powerful yuan power undulation, before he directly collided with the rock wall behind him. Don't hold back. I can feel that this blood-red figure is already an arrow at the end of its flight. Let's attack together and get rid of it completely. Lu Jitian suddenly shouted at Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang. Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang nodded in agreement. Then, each of them unleashed their best armor skills. Bang! In an instant, the entire cave was filled with boundless yuan power. Yuan power as powerful as a mountain constantly gushed out from the three of them. Nirvana Yuan Hand. Heaven-shaking seal. Earth-splitting seal. The three of them displayed their most powerful armor skills. 3 dazzling attacks turned into 3 rays of light and fiercely rushed towards the blood-red figure embedded in the rock wall. Rumble. Under these 3 powerful attacks, the entire cave began to shake. It felt as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Countless rocks fell from the ceiling like rain. One could only hear a miserable shriek as the tall blood-colored figure gradually turned into a bloody glow under the 3 powerful attacks and gradually dissipated. When the blood-red figure disappeared, Ba Shui, who was sitting on a pile of hay, suddenly opened his eyes. He indifferently stared at Lu Jitian and the other two in front of him. Soon after, he inexplicably turned his head to look in the direction of the entrance with a strange look in his eyes. Zhuowen, who was originally hiding at the entrance, coincidentally met Ba Shui's gaze. His heart fiercely twitched and he couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. Could it be that this fellow had already discovered him? However, Ba Shui only paused at the entrance for a moment. Soon after, he naturally shifted his gaze away and looked indifferently at Lu Jitian and the other two. He indifferently said, I never imagined that I, Ba Shui, who has been brilliant all my life, would actually fall at the hands of 3 ants. How laughable. Lu Jitian and the other two vigilantly stared at Ba Shui, who was sitting on a pile of hay. They knew that this fellow's cultivation was at least at the ultimate emperor stage. Although he was seriously injured, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. They didn't dare to be careless. Since I'm about to die, I'll hand over my Qiankuan bag to you. However, what stunned the 3 of them was that Ba Shui actually straightforwardly handed over the Qiankuan bag at his waist and threw it in the middle of the clearing. As they stared at the Qiankuan bag on the ground, the shock on their faces instantly turned into greed. The Qiankuan bag in front of them belonged to an unknown expert. There were definitely unimaginable benefits inside. The three vigilantly looked at each other and immediately rushed towards the Qiankuan bag on the ground. However, just as the three of them were about to touch the Qiankuan bag, an illusory figure had unknowingly appeared above the Qiankuan bag. Soon after, the figure unceremoniously took the Qiankuan bag. Chapter 123. Dragon Soul Lu Jitian and the other two did not expect that there would be another person in the cave besides the three of them. Looking at the empty ground and the rapidly escaping figure, Lu Jitian's face immediately turned gloomy. He shouted, "Bastard, how dare you snatch our Lu family's things? Do you have a death wish?" After speaking, Lu Jitian stomped his foot on the ground as the boundless yuan power in his body poured out like a vast ocean. His entire body shot towards the entrance of the cave like an arrow. Lu Jitian's shout also awakened Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang, who were still in shock. The two of them looked at each other and saw the dense killing intent in each other's eyes. The three of them represented the strongest force in the entire Luchuan town. They did not expect that someone would steal from them right under their noses. The feeling of being robbed made the two of them extremely unhappy. Looks like the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance's prestige is not enough. Someone actually dares to steal from us. This is the first time in many years that I've encountered someone like this. Qian Shang laughed sinisterly. Then it's time to display the prestige of the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance. This person must die. Lu Jiwen's voice was filled with killing intent. The two of them nodded slightly and turned into two black lightning bolts as they followed Lu Jitian. The cave instantly became much more deserted, leaving only Ba Shui sitting alone on a pile of hay. Cough cough, that brat has a very strange spiritual fluctuation. Since I'm about to die, I might as well take one last gamble. Perhaps I can find a chance to be reborn. After another round of violent coughing, Ba Shui's face became even more unsightly. He slapped his chest with his right hand and a dense blood-red light rose from his left chest. With a swoosh, he turned into a blood-red light and flew out of the cave. As the blood-red light flew out, the aura in Ba Shui's body gradually dissipated. In the end, Ba Shui's body turned into countless blood-red specks of light and disappeared. In the deep and serene cave, Zhuo Wen's feet moved continuously. His speed had already reached an astonishing level. However, the sound of the wind breaking behind him told him that the furious Lu Jitian was slowly closing in on him. "Brat! How dare you steal something right under our noses?" A loud shout suddenly sounded from not far behind Zhuowen. Soon after, an extremely swift and fierce palm wind suddenly swept over from behind. The ear-piercing sound of tearing air caused even Zhuowen's scalp to turn numb when he heard it. "Brat! You won't be able to dodge this attack. You can only take it head-on." Xiao He, who was standing on Zhuowen's shoulder, had a solemn look in her eyes. "I didn't expect the Lu family head to be so powerful. Judging from his aura, his cultivation should have reached the third stage of the corporeal Yang realm." Zhuowen could also feel that the palm wind behind him was getting fiercer and fiercer. He gritted his teeth, and his entire body was instantly covered with ice blue armor. The 9 blue swords on the back of the armor were instantly unsheathed, forming a sword barrier around his body. At the same time, Zhuowen turned around abruptly. Countless blood veins in his body suddenly erupted, and a huge ape shadow suddenly appeared behind him. Second Sky of Rampage. A low and deep roar slowly sounded out from his throat. Soon after, Zhuowen's right fist suddenly punched out. Powerful yuan power ferociously intertwined as the huge fist of the ape phantasm followed Zhuowen and violently punched out. "Oh! A brat at the first stage of the Yin Void realm?" At this moment, Zhuowen suddenly turned around, and Lu Jitian saw the true face of the person in front of him. What surprised him was that the person in front of him was a teenager of about 15 or 16 years old. Moreover, the aura emitted from the teenager's body was only at the first stage of the Yin Void realm. Lu Jitian became even angrier when he thought that the person who stole from him was only a warrior at the first stage of the Yin Void realm. Moreover, the warrior had succeeded in the end. Brat! You really have guts. With such little strength, you dared to steal from our Lu family. Today, I'll teach you a lesson. I'll let you know what you can and can't take. However, the price of this lesson is your life. A ferocious expression appeared on Lu Jitian's face. Endless killing intent, accompanied by surging original energy, suddenly burst out from his body and finally turned into a huge original energy palm in front of him. Bang! The palm violently hit the ape shadow. Under Zhuowen's horrified gaze, the ape shadow was instantly crushed by the palm like a piece of paper and shattered into countless blood-red fragments. Then, the huge palm made of elemental energy violently enveloped Zhuowen's skinny figure. With a violent explosion, the palm made of elemental energy ruthlessly smashed into the sword barrier outside Zhuowen's armor. The sword barrier instantly transformed into a gigantic blue whirlwind, viciously enveloping the Yuan power palm. A dazzling ball of light exploded, and the blue whirlwind formed by the 9 blue swords actually crumbled inch by inch under the heavy impact of the Yuan power palm, while the aura of the 9 sharp blue swords also began to weaken. Puff! A mouthful of blood suddenly spat out from Zhuowen's mouth. Zhuowen's entire body was violently thrown back due to the heavy blow. However, although the blue whirlwind was broken, the original energy palm also instantly collapsed under the corrosion of the blue whirlwind's cold air, turning into specks of light. A touch of astonishment slowly rose in Lu Jitian's eyes. The originally indifferent expression on his face instantly disappeared and was replaced by a strange and cautious expression. His cultivation had reached the 3rd stage of the corporeal Yang realm, but the youth in front of him was only at the 1st stage of the Yin Void realm. The difference between the two of them was almost an entire realm. In Lu Jitian's opinion, his original energy palm should have easily broken through the youth's defense and killed him in one move. However, the final result was beyond his expectations. Not only was the young man not instantly killed as he had imagined, he was only injured. More importantly, his attack was actually broken by the young man. At the same time, in the cave, Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang, who were following closely behind, came to Lu Jitian's side. Seeing that the original energy palm condensed by Lu Jitian was actually broken by a youth who was only 15 or 16 years old, their expressions became very rich. This kid is so strange. His cultivation is obviously only at the 1st stage of the Yin Void realm, but he was actually able to break through the attack of a 3rd stage of the corporeal Yang realm warrior. This kind of strength is far beyond the Yin Void realm. It's really strange. Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang looked at the youngster before them as a trace of graveness surfaced in their eyes. They were well aware of the might of the Yuan power palm that Lu Jitian had unleashed. Even they would find it somewhat troublesome to deal with that kind of power. However, the youngster before them had actually managed to block it. This made the two of them inexplicably shocked. Second brother, Qian Shang, the two of you came at the right time. Let's attack together and get rid of this brat first. Lu Jitian said with a gloomy face when he saw Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang. Looking at Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang behind Lu Jitian, Zhuowen's expression changed. Just now, it was already difficult for him to deal with Lu Jitian. Now, there were 2 more corporeal Yang realm warriors. Even he could not be a match for the 3 people in front of him. Attack! Immediately kill this kid on the spot to avoid more trouble. Lu Jitian's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. He waved his hand and formed a complicated handprint. Then, a light seal flew out from his palm and turned into a huge mountain in midair. Han seal. Behind him, Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang stared at the huge mountain in midair in shock. They did not expect that Lu Jitian would use this move to deal with a kid in the 1st stage of the Yin Void realm. However, the two of them also knew that the young man in front of them was a little strange. They did not dare to be careless. Both of them took out their best armor skills and fiercely attacked the young man in front of them. Nirvana Origin Hand. Earth-splitting seal. Two low roars came from their throats. Immediately, a huge palm, dozens of feet wide, stretched out from mid-air as if it was tearing through the void and fiercely suppressed the young man not far away. With the appearance of the huge palm, a light seal shot into the ground, causing the ground to crack inch by inch. A powerful force fiercely tore the ground apart, and immediately, countless sharp earth spikes burst out from the cracks in the ground. The expression on Zhuo Wen's face was extremely gloomy as he stared at the three attacks in front of him. Each of the three attacks was extremely difficult for him to deal with. If the three attacks were to be combined together, even he would not be able to block them. It seems that I can only fight. Zhuowen patted his storage bag and took out the huge dragon vein saber. Soon after, the endless dragon aura of the five-clawed golden dragon surged into his body. He knew that the dragon vein saber contained the dragon pressure. After using it a few times, he also discovered that the strength of the dragon pressure was determined by the amount of dragon aura that was poured in. He had never tried it before. If the dragon pressure within the dragon vein saber was pushed to its limit, the strength of the dragon pressure that was formed was something that even he had difficulty imagining. This time around, he could be considered to have staked everything. Currently, he could not use his two trump cards, the Nirvana Demon Flame and Xiao Hei's Origin Energy. The former had fallen into a deep slumber while the latter's Origin Energy had yet to recover. Hence, Zhuowen could only rely on the mysterious dragon vein saber in his hand at this moment. Qi. An endless amount of golden yellow dragon aura poured into the dragon vein saber like a river flowing into the sea. Following the continuous pouring of dragon aura, the surface of the dragon vein saber gradually emitted a hot golden-colored glow. Moreover, the glow became increasingly intense. Finally, it became as dazzling as the sun. When this glow reached its peak, a dragon roar that seemed to have originated from ancient times instantly shot to the sky. At the same time, an incomparably huge golden-colored dragon suddenly rushed out from the dragon vein saber. Chapter 124. Pursuit. The giant golden dragon, which was as huge as a mountain, arched its dragon body, which was hundreds of feet long, and soared into the sky. Its huge dragon claws violently clawed at the three powerful attacks coming at it. Rumble. An intense explosion suddenly resounded through the clouds, echoing unceasingly within the entire cave. The entire passageway also continuously swayed left and right because of this intense collision. Countless pieces of rock wildly fell from the top of the passageway like raindrops. Puff. Zhuowen felt a sweet taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The clothes on his upper body were torn apart by the powerful force, revealing his muscular body. Go. The dragon's soul in the dragon vein saber is incomplete and its power is very limited. I'm afraid it won't be able to hold on for long. Xiao Hei suddenly shouted as she stood on Zhuowen's shoulder. Zhuowen also knew that the current situation was critical. He forcefully endured the injuries in his body and pulled out the dragon vein saber in front of him. He stomped on the ground and flew out of the cave like an arrow. Bang! Just as Zhuowen left, the huge golden dragon's soul in the passage crumbled under the powerful attacks of Lu Jitian and the other two, revealing the figures of Lu Jitian and the other two. The three of them looked a little miserable, but they didn't seem to have suffered any serious injuries. Damn it! Where did this kid come from? Even with the three of us working together, we still can't make him stay. How is this possible? Qian Shang, who had been silent, finally showed a horrified expression. He couldn't imagine that a warrior in the Yin Void realm could block the joint attack of three warriors in the corporeal Yang realm and escape successfully. Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen's complexion became more and more unsightly. Lu Jitian coldly snorted and said, "Let's continue chasing, we can't let this kid live. This kid already has such combat strength at such a young age." If he is allowed to develop for a few more years, perhaps even if our Lu family and your mercenary alliance join forces, we may not be his match. Big brother is right. This time, we've completely offended that kid. I can see that he's not the kind of person who would settle things peacefully. If he really escapes, he'll definitely come back to take revenge on us in the future, Lu Jiwen echoed. After saying that, Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen did not hesitate to turn into two black bolts of lightning and shot out of the cave. They still had a chance. After all, there were still a lot of people outside the cave. They believed that they could catch up to Zhuowen with the help of these people. A trace of hesitation appeared on Qian Shang's face, but in the end, he bounced off the ground and followed after him. The cave entrance was close at hand, and the dazzling light seeped in from outside the cave. With a swoosh, Zhuowen instantly rushed out of the cave entrance and arrived at the empty space outside the cave. Everyone, listen up. Stop the kid who appeared at the cave entrance. Whoever manages to stall him will be rewarded with a grade 2 elixir and 100,000 yuan. The moment Zhuowen appeared at the entrance of the cave, Lu Jitian's vigorous voice suddenly rolled out. Nearly 100 warriors in the open space were surprised when they saw a young man suddenly appear at the entrance of the cave. However, Lu Jitian's sudden words made the eyes of the group of warriors turn scarlet red. Numerous gazes instantly gathered on Zhuowen's body at the cave entrance. From these gazes, there was a glimmer of greed. Ha! A grade 2 elixir and 100,000 yuan. The Lu family's patriarch is really generous this time. The Lu family's patriarch is really generous. With such a high reward, it's just to stall a kid. Everyone, let's go and take down this kid. Unbridled words suddenly rang out from the empty space. Soon after, nearly 100 warriors on the empty space pounced towards Zhuowen like ferocious tigers with their weapons raised. Their faces were filled with arrogant smiles and disdain. In their view, Zhuowen was only a 15-16-year-old youth. His cultivation was definitely not high, and it would be easy for them to take him down. Zhuowen! Rush over. You can't stay here for long. If the three people behind catch up, it will be very difficult for you to escape. Xiao He said with a solemn expression. He knew that this was a critical moment. Once the Lu family's trio caught up, it would be difficult for Zhuowen to escape. I know. Slightly raising his head, Zhuowen's cold face suddenly revealed a bloodthirsty smile. At the same time, waves of ice-blue cold air suddenly wrapped around his entire body. In the end, an ice-blue armor covered his entire body. The 9 blue swords on his back were suddenly unsheathed and swirled around his body. Those who block me, die. With a loud roar, Zhuowen ferociously stomped on the ground. A dense cold qi froze the ground around him into a layer of ice. Zhuowen was like an arrow released from a bow as he fearlessly charged towards the 100 cultivators in front of him. Kid! Your strength isn't much. Your tone isn't small. After we capture you later, can you still be so arrogant? The cultivator at the very front revealed a cold smile. He looked at the charging Zhuowen as though he was looking at a dead man. However, just as this cultivator spoke, he suddenly felt a trace of coldness on his neck. Soon after, he was shocked to discover that a long sword filled with icy blue cold qi had unknowingly slashed across his neck. His eyes widened as his entire body instantly turned into a stiff ice sculpture. There were 8 other cultivators who received similar treatment as this cultivator. The cultivators who were at the front of the line also ended up being turned into ice sculptures. Hiss! Seeing the 9 cultivators at the very front instantly turn into 9 cold ice sculptures, the remaining cultivators were stunned for a moment, and a series of gasps could be heard one after another. The 9 warriors who rushed to the front were the strongest in the group. Their cultivations had all reached the 5th level of the Yin Void Realm. However, they were killed in the blink of an eye. This strange and terrifying method made the rest of the warriors feel a chill in their hearts. However, the silence only lasted for a moment before a voice suddenly broke the silence. Don't be afraid. There are so many of us, but he is alone. We don't have to be afraid at all. As long as we can delay him until family head Lu and the others come out, we will get the corresponding rewards. As soon as the words came out, the scene became noisy again. The fear in their eyes was instantly replaced by greed. Yes. He is alone. I don't believe that he can kill us all in an instant if we attack together. Kill him. There is no reward without risk. Whoosh. Whoosh. The remaining cultivators, who were originally standing in place, became abnormally excited. Immediately, their eyes blazed as they turned into countless black shadows and surrounded Zhuo Wen. Obviously, they wanted to use the human wave tactic to completely surround and kill Zhuo Wen. Do you really think that you can stop me because you have more people? An indifferent and clear voice slowly rang out. Zhuo Wen quietly gazed at the sky. Countless cultivators were rushing towards him once again. His eyes revealed a ruthless expression. Sword Rampart. With a wave of his right hand, the 9 blue swords began to spin rapidly around his body. In an instant, a blue whirlwind was formed within 30 feet of his body. Bang! In the sky, countless warriors collided with the blue whirlwind and were instantly frozen into ice-blue ice sculptures by the cold air contained in the whirlwind. The ice sculptures were torn apart by the whirlwind and instantly turned into countless ice shards. Countless ice shards fell from the sky as if it was snowing. However, the snow that fell was blood red. The blue whirlwind killed almost half of the warriors in an instant. The remaining warriors stared blankly at the bloody snow that suddenly fell. They knew that it was the flesh and blood of living warriors. Thump! Thump! A thin and tall figure slowly walked out of the bloody snow. The light footsteps were like a death knell in the hearts of the remaining warriors, making them tremble with fear. They really couldn't imagine how a 15 or 16-year-old boy in front of them could have such a terrifying power. Almost 100 warriors of the Yin Void Realm were killed in just a few breaths, leaving only a dozen survivors. Boom! Zhuo Wen abruptly swung the dragon vein saber on his shoulder, and the powerful force caused the ground to crack. His indifferent voice slowly spread out from the spot where he stood. You still want to block my way? The remaining dozen or so cultivators stared at the young man in front of them with complicated and awe-inspiring expressions. They all lowered their heads and opened a path in the middle. Boy! Go to hell! A loud roar suddenly whistled out from the cave. Soon after, Zhuo Wen could feel a swift and fierce palm wind behind him as it ferociously smashed towards his back. Zhuo Wen's expression changed. He held the dragon vein saber with both hands. His body suddenly turned in a half-circle, and he fiercely swept back with the dragon vein saber. The powerful origin energy, accompanied by the strong wind, swept out a powerful whirlwind where he stood. Behind him, a origin energy palm that was dozens of meters long, like a mountain, fiercely shrouded Zhuo Wen's head. Boom! The dragon vein saber fiercely collided with the origin energy palm, and a ball of light that was like a scorching sun exploded. Immediately, the ground within a radius of 10 miles quickly spread out like a spider web, and the moment the light finally exploded, half of the ground caved in, directly forming a huge pit. Some of the weaker warriors in the surrounding could not help but groan and retreat a dozen steps under the aftermath of the violent collision. They could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. With a groan, a figure turned into a black shadow with a swoosh and swept straight into the depths of the Annihilation Forest. Lu Jitian, the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance, Zhuo Wen, will remember what happened today. If I don't die this time, wait for my revenge. The moment the figure disappeared from the Annihilation Forest, a voice filled with hatred reverberated in the empty space. Revenge. I don't think you have the chance. Today, I will kill you. Lu Jitian was not to be outdone. His figure flashed, and he closely followed Zhuo Wen into the Annihilation Forest. Behind Lu Jitian, Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang also followed closely. Chapter 125. 10 dragons to heaven night shrouded the huge annihilation forest. The cold moonlight poured down, draping a thin veil over the forest, making it seem exceptionally tranquil. In the past, Annihilation Forest would be filled with meta beasts and almost no one would be willing to stay here. However, today was an exception. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the quiet sky, the sound of rushing wind was suddenly heard. It immediately attracted the attention of the meta beasts in the depths of the forest. Many irritable howls suddenly sounded in the depths of the forest. In this pitch-black night, it was exceptionally horrifying. Zhuowen didn't pay too much attention to the restlessness of the meta beasts in the forest. He understood that the troublesome ones this time should be Lu Jitian and the other two who were relentlessly chasing after him. According to Xiao Hei's judgment, Lu Jitian and Qian Shang had already reached the third level of the corporeal Yang realm, while Lu Jiwen had only just entered the corporeal Yang realm. Right now, Zhuowen could only rely on the 10,000-year profound ice armor and dragon vein saber. His strength was at most on par with Lu Jiwen's. Encountering Lu Jitian and Qian Shang was like throwing an egg against a rock. If it wasn't for the cover of the night and the occasional meta beast that would appear from the forest to obstruct Lu Jitian and the other two, Zhuowen would have been caught long ago. The three fellows behind us are still in hot pursuit, and their speed is getting faster and faster. At this rate, they will catch up to us very soon. Xiao Hei stood on Zhuowen's shoulder and stared at the three figures that were rapidly approaching from behind. Her eyes were filled with seriousness. Zhuowen pursed his lips. He also knew that the current situation was very critical, but there was no other way except to escape. Unless he could give up the Qiankuan bag that he had obtained with great difficulty. However, the bag contained the ice flame saint symbol that he needed. It was absolutely impossible for him to give it up. Let's escape into the depths of Annihilation Forest first. In the depths of the forest, there are many powerful meta beasts. Only by messing up the situation will we have a chance of survival. Xiao Hei, now that we have the ice flame saint symbol, can you use the saint symbol's power to recover your origin energy? If you recover, we will be able to resolve this crisis. Tilting his head to look at Xiao Hei on his shoulder, a glimmer of hope appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. He was very clear that if Xiao Hei's origin energy would definitely be able to deal with the three people behind them. Kid. The holy talisman must be fused into your body. Only then can I use you as a medium and use the holy talisman to recover my origin energy. Xiao Hei editors Shuiyang Realm, Xiao Hei Lin, Xiao Hei just Xiao Hei Dragon. Hey NNNN Ice NN Hei, Xiao Yu, Xiao Hei. Xiao Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei. Hey he. Swoosh. A sonic boom suddenly sounded from behind, causing Zhuowen's expression to change. He knew that Lu Jitian and the other two were determined to get rid of him. Kid. Do you think that you can escape from me? A dark and cold voice was suddenly transmitted from behind. Soon after, Zhuowen could feel an extremely powerful yuan power undulation suddenly slanting towards him from behind. An indescribable sense of danger rose in his heart. Zhuowen fiercely gritted his teeth and heavily stomped on a tree trunk. A powerful force broke the tree trunk, causing Zhuowen's speed to soar. Boom! At the spot where Zhuowen had just disappeared, a large yuan power palm descended from the sky and ruthlessly slammed onto the tree trunk. The powerful yuan power even tore the entire tree apart. This little bastard is pretty slippery. Lu Jitian's figure appeared in a flash after his palm hit the air. He looked at the figure in front of him, whose speed had increased by a lot, and his face turned ashen. He never thought that the young man in front of him would be so difficult to deal with. He had been chasing him for nearly 6 hours, but he was still unable to capture him. Lu Jitian did not plan to give up after missing his attack. His figure once again expanded as he persevered in his chase. An incomparably powerful yuan power spread out in the air, causing some of the weaker yuan beasts to tremble in fear. Damn it, I've already chased for so long, yet they still haven't given up. After dodging the previous palm, Zhuowen's face involuntarily turned pale. He quickly swallowed a few energy-gathering pills before his complexion improved a little. However, when he felt the wind behind him once again, Zhuowen could not help but curse. After all, you have the Qiankuan bag of 4 reverend stage practitioners in your hands. There are definitely unimaginable treasures inside. Naturally, they won't give up so easily. Xiao He chuckled. Zhuowen bitterly smiled and did not reply. Instead, he focused on escaping in front of him. From time to time, he even had to pay attention to the sudden attacks of yuan beasts. In the subsequent chase, Lu Jitian's attacks became increasingly fierce. However, with Xiao He's sharp judgment and warnings, Zhuowen was always able to evade Lu Jitian's attacks. However, this also caused Lu Jitian to fly into a rage. However, this chase did not last for long. Very quickly, they arrived at the depths of Annihilation Forest. Instantly, a huge and boundless moat appeared in front of Zhuowen. The moat stretched as far as the eye could see and it was pitch black. At the bottom of the moat, it was unknown how deep it was. As far as the eye could see, it was filled with extremely terrifying yin qi. These yin qi were like fountains that shot into the sky from the moat. When they collided with each other, they formed a turbulence that resembled a whirlwind. The turbulence was like a thick wall that blocked Zhuowen's path. If one were to look at the turbulence above the moat from afar, they would feel that the shape of the turbulence was similar to a human eye that was silently watching the entire Annihilation Forest. Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Looking at the moat that appeared in front of him, Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. The huge moat in front of him was the most terrifying place in Annihilation Forest. Even corporeal Yang stage practitioners would not dare to enter this place. The terrifying yin qi turbulence inside could easily tear apart a corporeal Yang stage practitioner's armor. Suddenly stopping, Zhuowen's expression became increasingly ugly. At the same time, Lu Jitian and the other 2 quickly appeared behind him. When they saw the situation, they could not help but laugh heartily. You are Zhuowen, right? Looks like even the heavens are not helping you. I want to see where you will hide next. Zhuowen's expression was gloomy as he stared at the moat that was surging with yin qi. His eyes flickered wildly. He had never imagined that he would be forced to such a state. Zhuowen. You have nowhere else to go. Hand over your Qiankuan bag and perhaps we will let you live. Behind Lu Jitian, Qian Shang, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. Brother Qian Shang, you are wrong. This bastard has caused us to chase him for so long. How can we let him go so easily? If this brat obediently hands over his Qiankuan bag, we may leave his corpse intact. Otherwise, there won't even be a corpse left. Lu Jiwen suddenly chuckled. Qian Shang looked at the cruel smile on Lu Jiwen's face and furrowed his brows in displeasure. Just as he was about to speak, Lu Jitian waved his hand and interrupted him. Soon after, Lu Jitian focused his gaze on the youth before him. Zhuowen, as long as you hand over your Qiankuan bag and break one of your arms, we will spare your life. As for the matter of you snatching my Qiankuan bag, Lu Jitian, we'll let bygones be bygones. What do you think? Lu Jitian placed his hands behind his back as he looked down at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes flickered wildly as he took a deep breath. His face was filled with a sneer. He knew that he could not escape now and might as well let go. Who do you think you are? If you want my Qiankuan bag, come and take it if you have the ability. Zhuowen's sneer immediately stunned Lu Jitian and the other 2. They did not expect that even at this juncture, Zhuowen did not have the slightest intention of backing down. Moreover, his words were not polite at all. At least you have some backbone. However, when I capture you later and break your limbs, will you still have the same backbone? Lu Jitian laughed as a cruel glint flashed in his eyes. Jiwen, Qian Shang, please guard the rear. Do not let this little bastard take the opportunity to escape. Qian Shang, you do not need to worry. After we obtain the Qiankuan bag, the Lu family and the mercenary alliance will split it equally. Today, I will personally deal with this little bastard. Hearing Lu Jitian's instructions, Lu Jiwen did not have any objections. On the other hand, Qian Shang hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Seeing the two of them agree, the corners of Lu Jitian's mouth curled into a terrifying arc. Soon after, he looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. Zhuowen, since you want to die, I will personally send you on your way. Lu Jitian had a ferocious look on his face as he waved his hand. Surging yuan force condensed into a huge mountain that was several hundred feet tall in the sky. Countless yellow rays of light lingered around the mountain as a mighty aura was emitted from the mountain. Ultimate Han seal. A light seal suddenly shot out from Lu Jitian's hand and entered the huge mountain in the sky. Immediately, the mountain that was several hundred feet tall was instantly split into countless pieces of rock. Each piece of rock was the size of two people. Once the countless pieces of rock were formed, they immediately tore through the air and ruthlessly smashed towards Zhuowen like a rain of bullets. Kid, use the primordial roar dragon fist. I will help you break through to the 10 dragon roar stage. Once the primordial roar dragon fist reaches the 10 dragon roar stage, its power will undergo a qualitative change. Time is of the essence right now, so you better comprehend the essence of the 10 dragon roar as soon as possible. The black puppy had also sensed the immense power contained within the countless rocks in the sky. It could not be bothered to hide it any longer. It directly transmitted the secrets of the 10 dragon roars to Zhuowen, hoping that Zhuowen would be able to make a breakthrough at this moment. Feeling the mysterious secrets that inexplicably appeared in his mind, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. He slightly raised his head and fearlessly looked at the countless fragments in the sky. His gaze was calm and tranquil. Zhuowen gently raised his hands and slightly opened his palms. Soon after, he suddenly withdrew them and drew a set of strange marks in front of his chest. If one looked at those marks carefully, it was actually a picture of a dragon. At the same time, Zhuowen's body gradually emitted a dazzling golden light. An unprecedentedly powerful aura burst out from Zhuowen's body. Lu Jitian, whose face was originally filled with confidence, also felt the aura that suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. His expression abruptly changed. Chapter 126. A trapped beast struggle, primeval chaos dragon roar fist, 10 dragons to the heavens. A clear and indifferent voice slowly rang out. Immediately, a blazing light that was as bright as the sun erupted from Zhuowen's skinny body. Awoo! Countless deafening dragon roars abruptly exploded in the empty space. Shortly after, cracking sounds immediately erupted from Zhuowen's body. After that, huge golden dragons abruptly shot out from his body. The golden dragon's body was several hundred feet long, and its body was covered with densely packed dragon scales that were clearly visible. The resplendent brilliance illuminated the entire annihilation forest as if it was daytime. Awoo! 10 huge golden dragons circled above Zhuowen. The dazzling light almost turned into a scorching sun. This brilliance almost covered the entire annihilation forest. Countless origin beasts in the annihilation forest raised their heads at this moment and looked at the 10 huge golden dragons circling in the sky. They involuntarily knelt down. In Luchuan town, which was far away in the outskirts of the annihilation forest, countless warriors also raised their heads and stared at the 10 huge dragons that were like scorching suns in the depths of the annihilation forest. Everyone's faces were instantly stunned. What is that? Why is there such a terrifying energy fluctuation? So powerful. There are actually 10 huge golden dragons in that scorching sun. That seems to be the heaven fiend Dark Eye in the depths of the annihilation forest. Why is there such a huge commotion tonight? What exactly happened? Let's go. Let's go and take a look. When countless warriors slowly woke up from their daze, a noisy uproar gradually rose. The originally quiet Luchuan town instantly became extremely noisy. Many warriors also began to stir. When the noise reached its peak, someone finally could no longer hold back. He turned into a bolt of black lightning and rushed towards the depths of the Annihilation Forest. With these people taking the lead, the remaining warriors followed closely behind. In an instant, the sky above the Annihilation Forest was like a swarm of locusts. Countless warriors from Willow Town rushed towards the depths of the Annihilation Forest with excited expressions. Usually, Annihilation Forest was filled with danger at night. The number of meta beasts that came out to hunt at night was much higher than the number of meta beasts that came out during the day. However, tonight was exceptionally strange. The meta beasts in the forest seemed to be avoiding the plague as they hid in their own caves, not daring to come out. The warriors who had barged into the Annihilation Forest also discovered this strange phenomenon. Immediately, they were no longer cautious and rushed towards the depths of the forest at full speed. They wanted to see what had happened in the depths of the forest that caused such a huge commotion. Somewhere in the Annihilation Forest, a few blurry figures were heading towards the blazing light in the depths of the Annihilation Forest. Sister, do you really intend to join in the fun? I can feel the powerful fluctuations coming from there. There must be experts fighting there. To be able to create such a shocking scene, their strength is definitely not something we can match. I think it's better for us to go back. Furthermore, our mercenary group is wanted by the Lu family. Now that the Lu family has sent out all their elites, this is our chance. Let's escape. A clear and pleasant voice rang out from among the figures. If one looked closely, one would see that the lady who spoke was actually the deputy leader of the Lu Yan mercenary group, Han Yu. The sister she was referring to was the leader, Han Shui. Behind Han Shui and Han Yu was a tall and honest man. He was Feng Yu, whom Zhuowen had saved earlier. Beside Feng Yu was the red-dressed girl, Xiao Qian, who had a stubborn look on her face. And Xiao Qian, you are too weak. Why did you follow us? Han Yu's beautiful eyes turned towards the red-dressed girl behind her as she spoke in a serious tone. Deputy leader, don't worry. I will be responsible for Xiao Qian's safety. I don't know why, but the meta beasts in the Annihilation Forest seem to be afraid of something and have all gone into hiding. The forest now is much safer than usual. Feng Yu hurriedly explained for the red-dressed girl. Looking helplessly at the silent girl beside him, Feng Yu's lips curled into a bitter smile. He knew that the reason Xiao Qian insisted on following them was probably related to Xiao Sei. I heard that the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance who went to the Blood Fiend Rock today did not obtain the treasure inside. In the end, the treasure was snatched away by an unknown young man. Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen of the Lu family and Qian Shang of the Mercenary Alliance were all furiously chasing after that young man. I'm afraid that the strange phenomenon in the Annihilation Forest is related to those four people. Han Shui, who was at the front, suddenly spoke. Her beautiful face revealed a rare trace of determination. You think that young man is the Xiao Sei who saved us today? Feng Yu suddenly asked. Definitely. Only that fellow has the ability to snatch a rare treasure from the hands of the three strongest people in Luchuan town. Our Flowing Flame mercenary group owes this little brother a favor. I can't just stand by and watch him die, Han Shui said with a resolute gaze. As soon as Han Shui finished speaking, a glint flashed across the eyes of the girl in the red dress who was at the very back. She stared at the 10 dragons that were clearly visible in the sky and a complicated look appeared in her eyes once again. She also did not expect that the young man, whom she thought was just an ordinary alchemist, was actually hiding such powerful strength. Not only did he single-handedly save the Flowing Flame mercenary group from danger, he even snatched something from the hands of the three strongest people in Luchuan town. Whether it was courage or strength, no one in the same generation could compare to him. The number one genius of the mercenary group, Feng Gong, whom she had always admired, also paled in comparison to Zhuowen. In front of the heaven fiend Dark Eye, Zhuowen, whose body was enveloped in a dense golden light, stared indifferently at Lu Jitian, who was looking down from above. He gently waved his right hand and the 10 huge golden dragons in the sky suddenly enveloped his body. Rumble. At the same time, Lu Jitian's attack arrived in an instant. Countless meteorite-like fragments fell like rain and ruthlessly smashed onto Zhuowen's body. The moment the golden dragons collided with the countless fragments, everything seemed to have come to a standstill. When this strange stillness gradually faded away, an earth-shattering sound instantly rang out in the entire Annihilation Forest. Countless fragments fell to the ground, forming a forbidden zone. A ball of brilliance exploded and countless blazing energy fluctuations spread out in all directions like ripples. Following that, countless explosions rang out and the vast open space was finally formed into a huge crater under the enormous explosive energy. Lu Jitian, who was standing not far away, stared at the deep crater in front of him and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Although the powerful aura that Zhuowen had suddenly released had shocked him, in his opinion, even if Zhuowen's aura had soared, it would be of no use after being struck by his ultimate Han seal. I didn't expect him to be so weak after causing such a huge commotion. It seems that I have overestimated this kid. I wonder if that kid's body is still intact after the previous attack. However, looking at the situation, I will have to personally search for his Qianquan bag. Glancing at the deep crater not far away, Lu Jitian's mouth revealed a trace of a cruel smile. Big brother. It seems that we have caused quite a commotion this time. Quite a number of fighters have come. Lu Jiwen, who was behind him, suddenly interrupted. Lu Jitian frowned slightly. He had also discovered that there were many whooshing sounds coming from the dense forest behind him. Soon after, countless black figures flickered endlessly in the forest. My friends, the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance are dealing with matters. I hope that you won't interfere. Otherwise, we don't mind going on a killing spree. A vigorous voice spread through the entire forest with the help of elemental energy. When Lu Jitian's words came out, the flickering figures in the dense forest immediately stiffened. Evidently, Lu Jitian's announcement of his name had a certain effect. Looking at the dense forest that gradually quietened down, Lu Jitian's mouth revealed a trace of satisfaction. Just as he was about to turn his head, an indescribable sense of crisis instantly filled his mind. Old man, do you really think that victory is in your hands now? A cold voice suddenly rang out. Soon after, a figure immediately rushed out from the deep crater. His target was Lu Jitian, whose attention had shifted to the dense forest. Primordial Dragon Roar Fist, 10 dragons soaring to the heavens. A shout came out from his throat. Soon after, 10 golden dragons appeared once again, intertwining with each other as they pounced towards Lu Jitian. Lu Jitian simply did not expect that there would be such an unforeseen event in the end. He was caught off guard and only had time to release his armor before he was devoured by the 10 dragons. Bang! A figure suddenly flew out from the impact of the dragons. After tumbling on the ground for more than a dozen times, he finally crashed into a thick tree trunk, revealing a rather embarrassing figure. At this time, more and more figures gathered in the dense forest. At a glance, it was densely packed with figures. These were all warriors who had rushed over from Luchuan town. When these warriors rushed over, they coincidentally saw a miserable figure flying backwards and crashing into a tree trunk. When these people saw the face of this figure clearly, a series of gasps sounded one after another, and the expressions on their faces became unusually interesting. This was because this figure was none other than the current family head of the Lu family, Lu Jitian. They did not expect that Lu Jitian, whose strength had reached the 3rd stage of the corporeal Yang realm, would be in such a sorry state. When everyone cast their gazes forward and saw the thin and tall figure, the gasps came to an abrupt end. The expressions on their faces seemed to freeze as they became sluggish. This was because the figure was actually a youth of only 15 or 16 years old. Moreover, the youth's aura was only at the 1st stage of the Yin Void realm. Judging from the trajectory and position on the ground, Lu Jitian's embarrassing state seemed to be caused by the youth in front of them. Chapter 127. A desperate situation, little bastard, I will definitely kill you today. A roar that contained madness and fury suddenly resounded over the empty ground. Countless numbers of human figures within the dense forest also let out this roar. Their gazes gathered towards the source of the sound. At this moment, they saw that Lu Jitian's entire body was covered by a fiery red armor. Wave after wave of hot energy erupted from within his body. Lu Jitian's current condition was not very good. Although he had unleashed his armor in time and blocked Zhuowen's sneak attack, the remnant waves of the powerful energy caused his chest to feel stuffy. More importantly, he had actually been reduced to such a miserable state by Zhuowen in front of everyone's eyes. This was something that Lu Jitian could not endure in his heart. In front of the empty ground, Zhuowen watched Lu Jitian walking over one step at a time. A bitter smile surfaced on the corner of his mouth. The 10 dragons soar to the heavens earlier had completely exhausted the little remaining Yuan power within his body. Without the support of Yuan power, even Zhuowen was just like a cripple. He did not have the slightest ability to resist. The might of the armor technique that you have used earlier has really surprised me. However, can you still use it a second time? Silence covered the sky. The disheveled Lu Jitian slowly raised his head. Both of his eyes were like a poisonous snake as he viciously stared at Zhuowen and slowly said, "If you can't, I will take your life, the unique treasure in your hands and the armor technique from earlier." Lu Jitian slowly raised his hand and faced Zhuowen from a distance. Rich Yuan power once again swiftly gathered on his palm. Zhuowen's eyes were incomparably gloomy. He did not expect that he would still be unable to defeat Lu Jitian even after using the 10 dragons soar to the heavens. This was already his greatest counterattack at this moment. However, the effect was not as good as he had expected. After all, the gap between him and Lu Jitian was really too great. Zhuowen knew that even if he currently possessed the Nirvana Demon Flame, he might not be a match for Lu Jitian. "Zhuowen, what should we do?" Xiao Hei's solemn voice sounded within Zhuowen's heart. After taking a deep breath, Zhuowen suddenly turned around and looked at the endless natural chasm. He struggled for a moment before a trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. "Now, our only choice is to enter the Heaven Fiend Netherworld Eye." Staring at Lu Jitian who was closing in on him step by step, Zhuowen stomped on the ground. Under countless shocked gazes, he charged into the giant eye formed by the huge cold current. "Ha, Lu Jitian, if you have the guts, then chase after me." A loud laughter sounded from the sky above the empty ground. Everyone's eyes shrunk when they heard the loud laughter. A thought flashed across their hearts. That fellow has gone crazy. That guy must be crazy. Entering the Heavenly Fiend Dark Eye is certain death. What a ruthless guy. Even if he dies, he's not willing to give his treasure to Lu Jitian. That Lu Jitian is probably going crazy from anger. Countless whispers rang out noisily in the sky. Zhuowen's actions had exceeded everyone's expectations. No one would have thought that he would choose such an extreme method in the end. "Bastard! You dare!" Lu Jitian's expression involuntarily turned dull as he looked at Zhuowen, who had thrown himself into the heavenly moat. Soon after, a furious expression erupted from his eyes as a crazy roar erupted across the sky. "Jiwen, Qian Shang! Stop him together. Otherwise, if this brat really enters the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, we won't be able to obtain that treasure." Lu Jitian roared. His entire body was like a bolt of black lightning as he suddenly rushed towards Zhuowen. His speed had reached a terrifying level. Lu Jiwen and Qian Shang also knew the seriousness of this matter and no longer held back. They erupted with their fastest speed and chased after Zhuowen. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 3 ear-piercing whooshing sounds resounded in the sky. Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he sensed that Lu Jitian and the other two had arrived 10 meters behind him in an instant. Moreover, the distance between them was constantly shrinking. Zhuowen, you won't be able to escape today. Even if you die, you must leave the treasure behind. A sinister voice suddenly rang out behind him. Soon after, Zhuowen sensed 3 extremely powerful yuan power fluctuations coming from behind him. In the end, they turned into 3 intense balls of light that shot towards Zhuowen's back. Damn it! Feeling the power of the attack behind him, a trace of despair involuntarily surfaced on Zhuowen's face. He could feel the power of the attack behind him. If he was hit by it, even he would be seriously injured and on the verge of death. However, he did not have the slightest bit of strength on his body right now. Just as the powerful attack was about to reach Zhuowen's body, a strange blood light suddenly shot over from afar. Without anyone noticing, the blood light quietly adhered to Zhuowen's body. Rumble. Above the natural chasm, a huge ball of light suddenly exploded. The intense white light seemed to have enveloped the entire sky, causing the pitch-black night to be as bright as day. Ha! Little bastard, this is the consequence of going against our Lu family. Staring at the exploding ball of light in the sky, Lu Jitian wildly laughed. His sinister face was filled with madness. However, the smile on his face only lasted for an instant before it instantly froze. A strange blood light suddenly erupted from the cluster of light that had exploded in the sky. Immediately, one could hear a loud rumbling sound. The dazzling white light was suddenly replaced by a blood light. At the same time, a blood-colored human figure that was dozens of feet in size slowly floated in the sky. This is the power of the tyrant blood? Zhuowen, who originally had a look of despair on his face, looked at the blood-colored figure in shock. He recognized the blood-colored figure in front of him. It was the materialization of the tyrant blood's soul armor. Brat! My power cannot be maintained for too long. Quickly escape. The blood-colored human figure took a deep look at Zhuowen. Immediately, he waved the blood-colored broadsword in his hand. Carrying Zhuowen, he charged into the natural moat in front of everyone's shocked eyes. In an instant, he disappeared within it. Lu Jitian, as long as I, Zhuowen, am alive, I will make your Lu family pay the price in blood. Also, before I leave, let me tell you a secret. Your son, Lu Yuan, was actually killed by me. Hee, the Flowing Flame mercenary group that you have been taking revenge on is simply a joke, haha. When Zhuowen disappeared into the huge natural chasm, Zhuowen's beast-like roar resounded from the natural chasm and finally reverberated in the sky. What? My nephew, Lu Yuan, was killed by this brat? Lu Jiwen, who was originally behind him, also heard Zhuowen's roar and could not help but be startled. However, after thinking about it, he also felt that Zhuowen's words were likely to be true. After all, the Flowing Flame mercenary group was only a small mercenary group. Even the strongest leader, Han Shui, had just reached the Yin Void Realm. Half a year ago, the Flowing Flame mercenary group had no ability to kill Lu Yuan, who had a first-level Yin Void Realm guard. However, Zhuowen was different. He had such strength at such a young age, so it should be easy for him to kill a first-level Yin Void Realm warrior. Therefore, what Zhuowen said was likely to be true. Zhuowen. I, Lu Jitian, will remember you. Even if you enter the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, so what? I will investigate your clan. Since you are already dead, then your clan will pay for the sins you have committed. I will ruthlessly erase everything related to you in order to avenge you on her. Lu Jitian roared to the sky. His voice was filled with rage and resentment. At this time, his eyes were bloodshot. After such a crazy roar, Lu Jitian's face suddenly turned red and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Oh my god! Lu Jitian was actually injured. It was caused by Zhuowen from before. What terrifying strength, what monstrous talent. That young man named Zhuowen seems to be only 15 or 16 years old. He was able to force Lu Jitian to such a state at such a young age. If he was allowed to develop for a few more years, wouldn't his strength be even more terrifying? Seeing Lu Jitian spit out blood due to anxiety, the entire dense forest was in an uproar. In the depths of the dense forest, a beautiful figure looked absent-mindedly at the figure who had resolutely jumped into the heaven fiend dark eye. She only felt a lump in her throat and 2 lines of clear tears fell down involuntarily. He is really Zhuowen. Why did he hide it from me? Han Shui covered her cherry lips with her jade-like hand, her voice trembling and sorrowful. Han Yu, who was beside her, also stared blankly at the figure who had disappeared in the cold current. A trace of sorrow flashed through her beautiful eyes. Finally, she calmly held Han Shui's jade-like hand and said, "Sister, we must leave this place now. It's best that we leave Luchuan town while the sky is dark. It will be too late for us to leave once the Lu family realizes this. Also, Zhuowen is blessed by the heavens. He will definitely be fine." Han Shui once again stared at the huge cold current above the empty ground. In the end, she nodded her head. After roaring absent-mindedly for a while, Lu Jitian finally slowly calmed down on the empty ground. His expression was gloomy as he looked at the terrifying blade-like cold chi turbulence above the natural moat. After hesitating a couple of times, he finally did not dare to charge in. He clearly understood just how dangerous the heaven fiend Dark Eye was. "Big brother, I'm afraid that Zhuowen has already died in the cold current," Lu Jiwen cautiously said after seeing that Lu Jitian had finally calmed down. "If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Gather all of the Lu family's men and search along the periphery of the natural moat. I can sense that there is a powerful seal outside the Qiankuan bag left behind by that expert. It won't be so easily damaged. We might be able to find him again if we wait outside." Lu Jitian took a deep breath and said in a gloomy voice. "Yes." A bitter smile appeared on Lu Jiwen's face. The heavenly moat in front of him was extremely large. If he wanted to arrange for people to search, it would not be a simple project. However, Lu Jitian was still angry. He did not want to provoke him and be scolded. Chapter 128. Possession. The cold moonlight shone down, draping a layer of gauze over the pitch-black forest. With the departure of Lu Jitian and the rest, the place became even more chaotic. The eyes of the cultivators hidden in the dense forest flickered, but they didn't leave. Instead, they descended and formed groups to search along the edge of the natural moat. Clearly, they wanted to try their luck and perhaps find a rare treasure at the edge. The night's earth-shattering battle finally came to an end when Zhuowen charged into the desperate situation of the heaven fiend Dark Eye. However, everyone was somewhat regretful that they weren't able to see the true appearance of the rare treasure. Fortunately, tonight's battle was enough to make their trip worthwhile. It was obvious that after tonight, Zhuowen's name would completely shock the entire Luchuan town. He had single-handedly contended against the combined forces of the Lu family and the mercenary alliance. Furthermore, he had fought with Lu Jitian, who was at the 3rd layer of the corporeal yang stage, and even injured him. Such a glorious battle record was enough to make many of the Luchuan town's cultivators revere him. Tonight's battle had made Luchuan town remember the name Zhuowen, as well as his arrogant and untamed figure. The endless cold currents in the heaven fiend Dark Eye were like blades as they swept towards Zhuowen's body. Streams of heaven fiend cold chi flooded over from all directions. Each stream of heaven fiend cold chi was equivalent to a full-powered attack from a corporeal yang stage cultivator. Countless streams of heaven fiend cold chi converged and collided with each other, creating a powerful turbulence that was incomparably terrifying. The 10,000-year mysterious ice armor on Zhuowen's body completely turned into nothingness after blocking dozens of streams of heaven fiend cold chi. The cold chi was like a sharp blade as it struck Zhuowen's body, leaving behind hideous wounds. In a short period of time, Zhuowen's body was drenched in blood. What a powerful cold current. "Kid, even I can't help you this time." Xiao Hei's voice immediately rang out in his mind. However, Her voice was filled with helplessness and despair. It's better than falling into the hands of Lu Jitian and the others. It's a pity that I have to die in such an aggrieved manner even though I have already snatched the holy ice-fire symbol. I'm really unwilling to accept this. Zhuowen could feel his body becoming more and more numb as he smiled bitterly. Puchi. A cold current struck Zhuowen's body, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Faced with the endless cold current around him, his consciousness finally began to gradually blur. Sizzle. However, just as Zhuowen's consciousness fell into complete darkness, a strange sound suddenly rang out. Afterwards, a smear of blood-red light emerged from Zhuowen's chest. Afterwards, the blood-red light turned into a burly man. If one looked carefully, the appearance of the man formed by the blood light was Tyrant Blood, who had disappeared from the cave just now. Tyrant Blood quietly stared at the youth in front of him. His eyes flickered as he said indifferently, "Looks like my luck is pretty good. I originally thought that I wouldn't have a chance, but I never expected that an opportunity would present itself to me." As he spoke, Tyrant Blood once again turned into a blood-red light and wrapped around Zhuowen's body, forming a strange blood cocoon. This blood cocoon looked weak, but when the extremely powerful cold current hit it, it only caused the surface of the blood cocoon to fluctuate slightly. Under the protection of the blood cocoon, Zhuowen's body slowly sank and finally disappeared into the endless darkness. In the courtyard of the Lu family in Luchuan town, Lu Jitian's expression was ugly as he listened to the report of a cultivator. Veins continuously popped out from the back of his hand. The third head's dantian had been crippled and almost half of the remaining elites of the family had been slaughtered. All of this was done by a youth named Xiao Se. It was said that this youth had gone to the Blood Fiend Rock yesterday for the treasure within. A middle-aged man dressed in black knelt on the ground with one knee. His gaze was somewhat apprehensive as he secretly glanced at Lu Jitian. He knew that the Lu family head in front of him was extremely eccentric and temperamental. "Big brother. That youth named Xiao Se should be the one who stole the treasure from us, Zhuowen. I never expected that bastard to be so vicious. He actually took advantage of the fact that our Lu family's main force wasn't around to kill so many of our family's elites. Even third brother was crippled." Lu Jiwen, who was standing behind Lu Jitian, said with a hint of anger in his eyes as his eyes flickered. Bang! Lu Jitian suddenly slammed the table in his right hand. A powerful yuan power instantly smashed the table into powder. "Zhuowen, it's that Zhuowen again. Lu Jitian, and this bastard cannot exist under the same sky. Second brother, have you found out the origin of this bastard? I can't wait to get rid of his family." Lu Jitian said with a gloomy gaze. "I have found out. It's just that." At this point, Lu Jiwen obviously hesitated. "It's just that what?" Lu Jitian also noticed the hesitation on Lu Jiwen's face and asked with wrinkles. "If the information I received is correct, this Zhuowen seems to be a disciple of one of the three major families in Rattan Armor City, the Zhuo family. It is said that this child is the strongest in the younger generation of the Zhuo family. Moreover, he was accepted as a disciple by Master Kuraki. Even the governor of Rattan Armor City, Guyu Tian, favors this child." At this point, Lu Jiwen revealed a bitter smile. He secretly sized up Lu Jitian and said, "This child's origin is not small. I'm afraid that we've hit a wall this time. This child actually has such a great origin. No wonder he has such powerful strength at such a young age. He is indeed a rare genius." Lu Jitian frowned slightly. He could feel how troublesome Zhuowen's identity was. "Big brother. The Zhuo family is stronger than our Lu family. Don't tell me that we still have to find trouble with the Zhuo family." Lu Jiwen said bitterly. He did not expect Zhuowen's origin to be so great. If the news of Zhuowen's death were to spread to the Zhuo family, the Lu family and the Zhuo family would not rest until one of them was dead. Lu Jitian's eyes flickered. In the end, he sneered and said, "I won't let you die in vain. Moreover, That bastard Zhuoan made our Lu family so miserable. Since that child is dead, I will not let his family go. I heard that the Wang family of Rotten Armor City has always been at odds with the Zhuo family. Big brother, you want to borrow the Wang family's hand to completely uproot the Zhuo family? However, our Lu family is not even as powerful as the Zhuo family, let alone the #1 family in Rotten Armor City. I'm afraid that the Wang family will not care about us. Lu Jiwen's face flashed with joy. However, he seemed to have thought of something and said worriedly. Second brother. Our Lu family's strength is not only on the surface. It seems that we will need to ask the ancestor to come out. This time, our Lu family has suffered too great a loss. The ancestor will not ignore it. If the ancestor is willing to come out, even the Wang family will give our Lu family some face. Lu Jitian's eyes flickered as he finally made up his mind. Ancestor. But he has not cared about our Lu family's matters for many years. Will he really come out when we go over? Lu Jiwen said worriedly. Lu Jitian turned around and looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. He said indifferently, if we include the news of the mysterious treasure of the expert in the cave, the ancestor will be moved. After all, that mysterious treasure was within our reach. However, it was snatched away by that bastard Zhuoan. I believe that even the ancestor will not be able to take this lying down. Moreover, a few of our Lu family's direct descendants were killed by that bastard. Second brother, follow me to the forbidden area and ask the ancestor to come out and seek justice for us. Having said that, Lu Jitian waved his sleeves and turned to leave the courtyard. Lu Jiwen's eyes flickered for a while before he finally followed. In the endless darkness, there seemed to be no end. Stepping on the ground, Zhuoan looked around and realized that the surroundings were pitch black. It was strange and eerie. Where is this? Unconsciously, Zhuoan wanted to speak. However, he was shocked to realize that his lips were only moving and no sound was coming out. Upon realizing this, a trace of horror flashed across Zhuoan's face. Rumble. Suddenly, the pitch-black space shook violently as if something was constantly colliding with the outside. A sliver of fear suddenly crept into his heart. For some reason, Zhuoan actually broke into a run. He kept running forward, running aimlessly. He didn't know why he was running, but he just kept running. Ahead of him, without exception, was always pitch-black darkness. Finally, Zhuoan was tired from running. At this time, the terrifying shaking gradually disappeared. Sitting on the ground, Zhuoan panted violently. He could even hear the sound of his heart beating in his chest. Suddenly, a blood-red light tore through the darkness in front of him and a blood-red figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Squinting his eyes, Zhuoan slowly opened them. When he saw the figure that appeared in front of him, a trace of astonishment suddenly appeared on his face. This was because the person who appeared in front of him was Tyrant Blood, who had died in the cave. At this moment, Tyrant Blood's resolute face had a gentle smile as he lightly said, "You must be very curious about where you are, right? However, you don't have to be afraid. I can bring you away from here as long as you come to my side." As he spoke, Tyrant Blood opened his arms and waved at Zhuoan. His face was filled with a gentle smile as if he was a father waving at his son. Zhuoan frowned slightly. Regardless of whether it was the current environment or Tyrant Blood who suddenly appeared in front of him, he felt a little strange and indescribable anxiety. Although Tyrant Blood's smile looked very sincere, his intuition told him that he absolutely could not get close to Tyrant Blood. It was as if once he got close to Tyrant Blood, something irreversible would happen. "Little fellow, your vigilance is quite strong. However, even if you don't come over, can't I go over?" Suddenly, a cold laugh rang out. The gentle smile on Tyrant Blood's face suddenly disappeared and was replaced with ridicule and malevolence. "Little fellow, you can't escape from my palm. I will help you become a peerless expert. Even the Azure Emperor of the Azure Mystic Empire is afraid of him. As long as you don't resist me, I can help you achieve it." Whoosh! Chapter 129. Illusory true dragon, you'd better not resist. Otherwise, it will be too late for regrets when you become an idiot. A strange cold laughter suddenly sounded from the sky. Raising his head slightly, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that a glue-like blood cloud was drifting over. At the center of the blood cloud, a ferocious blood face appeared. A pair of blood-red eyes without pupils stared straight at Zhuowen below. Damn it! Tyrant blood, what exactly do you want? As he stared at the approaching blood cloud, the seriousness in Zhuowen's eyes became even denser. What do I want? Of course, I want to give you a chance to become an expert. As long as you accept all of my consciousness, I can allow you to advance to the fourth venerable realm in a short period of time. As long as your strength reaches the fourth venerable realm, regardless of whether it is Luchuan Town, Rot 10 Armor City, or even the entire Muqin County, you will be the supreme ruler. At that time, even if you want to become the Marquis of Muqin County and become the ruler of all the armies and cities in Muqin County, it will only take a single sentence from you. As long as you accept my consciousness, all the glory and wealth will be at your fingertips. A hoarse voice slowly rang out from the blood cloud. The voice was filled with a strong sense of temptation. Accept your consciousness. You mean that you want to use this to destroy my soul and replace it? Your goal is to take over my body, yet you make it sound so dignified. How disgusting! Zhuowen sneered as he slowly retreated. Heh heh. Brat, you are quite cautious. However, even if this is the case, so what? You still won't be able to escape from my grasp. Although I'm only in soul form right now, I'm a Quaternion realm expert. My soul strength far surpasses yours. With your current weak soul, can you possibly be my match? A savage laughter suddenly sounded from the blood cloud. Soon after, a blood claw that was dozens of feet large suddenly reached out from the blood cloud and shot towards Zhuowen below. Zhuowen's eyes hardened. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground as his entire body flew backwards like a swallow. At the same time, the Yuan power in his body suddenly poured into his fists. Powerful Yuan power undulations instantly erupted in the entire space. Chaotic Yuan Dragon Roar Fist, 10 dragons soaring to the heavens. Endless dragon roars spread in all directions like waves in the entire space. Soon after, a scorching sun-like light illuminated Zhuowen's entire body. Next, one after another, huge golden dragons that were thousands of feet long suddenly rushed out of his body. The 10 dragons soared into the sky and wandered about. They intertwined with each other and finally formed a dragon-shaped light circle. Traces of destructive ripples were emitted from the dragon-shaped light circle. The energy ripples that were emitted from it caused even the entire dark space to shake a little. Oh! The power of your armor technique is not bad. It is actually able to create such a shocking power. Looks like it should be at the level of a heavenly armor technique. However, if it is only at this level, it will not be able to stop me. Some astonishment was transmitted from the blood cloud. However, it was quickly replaced by disdain. Soon after, the blood claw that swooped down seemed to be filled with air as it instantly grew several times larger. It turned into a blood-colored Qilin claw that was thousands of feet long. Rumble. The huge dragon-shaped Lin claw finally collided violently with the huge blood-colored Qilin claw. The powerful energy undulations even caused the entire space to become still. When this silence reached its peak, a loud sound that seemed to split the sky resounded across the entire space. Brat, your soul is really too weak. Even if you have a heavenly armor technique, it is completely useless. You can go in peace. I will take over your body for you. Of course, to repay your kindness, I will take care of your body. I will continue to live in this world in your name. I will even protect your family on your behalf. Ha! Wanton and savage laughter rang out from the blood cloud once again. Soon after, the huge blood-colored Qilin claw in the sky suddenly glowed with a bloody light. Next, an even more powerful force was transmitted from the blood-colored Qilin claw. It directly smashed the dragon-shaped Lin claw into pieces in an unstoppable manner. Ugh! A mouthful of fresh blood was suddenly spat out from Zhuowen's mouth. Next, his body was like a withered leaf as he flew backwards. His aura also instantly withered. Brat! Rest in peace. Rumble. After the gigantic blood-colored Qilin claw destroyed the dragon-shaped light circle, its momentum did not decrease in the slightest. Instead, it ferociously rushed towards Zhuo Wen's flying figure. Everywhere it passed, a bloody wind blew and a bloody light appeared. Damn it! It was not easy for me to escape from the Lu family's pursuit. Now, I actually encountered such a troublesome matter. Am I, Zhuowen, destined to die? Seeing that the blood-colored Qilin claw was approaching, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with unwillingness as he roared towards the sky. Bang! In the end, the blood-colored Qilin claw viciously covered Zhuowen's tiny body completely. The blood cloud in the sky suddenly squirmed and finally turned into a middle-aged man with a resolute face. This man was Ba Shui, who had plotted against Zhuowen. Hee. Looks like it's over. This time, I really made the right bet. However, after this possession, I will also fall into a period of weakness. As long as I get through this period of weakness, my strength will gradually recover. Then, this so-called heaven fiend Dark Eye will be a piece of cake for me. Looking at the mountain-like blood-colored Qilin claw in the distance, Ba Shui's eyes flickered. In fact, he had already secretly planned this possession when he sensed Zhuowen's existence in the cave. The opportunity he had been waiting for was when Zhuowen was at his weakest. Only then would he be able to take advantage of the situation, and such an opportunity had indeed arrived. Aoki, just you wait. After my strength has completely recovered, I will find a way to control the Ice-Fire Holy Symbol. After I completely control the Ice-Fire Holy Symbol, I will turn your Azure Dragon Branch Hall upside down to avenge my physical body. Speaking till here, Ba Shui once again looked at the blood-colored Qilin claw in the distance. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly stopped and a trace of horror gradually rose in his eyes. He saw that the blood-colored Qilin claw in the distance had strangely collapsed inch by inch. At this moment, the endless blood light receded like the tide. Dang! Dang! At the same time, a crisp sound of footsteps slowly sounded in the entire dark space. Vaguely, in the blurry blood light, a thin and tall figure slowly walked out of the endless blood light. When he took the last step, a somewhat handsome young man's face completely appeared in front of Ba Shui. Looking at the young man's figure that suddenly appeared, Ba Shui's pupils shrank and turned into pinholes. The shock in his eyes instantly turned into sluggishness. He really couldn't imagine that his full-strength attack couldn't erase the young man in front of him at all. How is this possible? You are just a warrior of the Yin Void Realm. How could you withstand my attack just now? Even a warrior of the King Zhao realm would find it difficult to withstand that attack. Ba Shui's face was as if he had seen a ghost and he said to himself in disbelief. If the attack just now was not in the soul state, perhaps I would not have been able to withstand it at all. But unfortunately, your physical body has been destroyed and you are only in the soul state. In this state, I am not afraid at all. A sarcastic sneer slowly appeared on the young man's face. Immediately, a three-legged jade cauldron that was as tall as a person slowly emerged behind the young man. A piercingly cold aura suddenly erupted from the jade cauldron. This cauldron was the Supreme Dragon Cauldron that had been hidden in Zhuowen's Sea of Consciousness. The Supreme Dragon Cauldron did not have any physical attack means, but it had an unimaginable suppressive power against things in the soul state. This could be seen from the fact that the cauldron could absorb warriors' souls and armor souls. Therefore, this cauldron was the absolute nemesis of souls. What exactly is this jade cauldron of yours? Ba Shui's eyes narrowed and there was a trace of emotion in his voice. He could feel that the jade cauldron behind Zhuowen was emitting an aura that made his entire soul tremble. Something that can restrain you. Did you have a good time just now? Now, it's my turn. a cold glint flickered in Zhuowen's eyes. Soon after, he waved his right hand and pointed at Ba Shui. The supreme dragon cauldron behind him immediately turned into a ray of light and flew towards Ba Shui. So what if your jade cauldron has the ability to restrain souls? The gap between you and me is too big. I don't believe that you can be my opponent with just this jade cauldron. Ba Shui coldly smiled. Although there was a grave look in his eyes, there was more disdain and contempt. He gently waved his right hand and an endless bloody light suddenly gathered in front of him. Blood Fiend burst claw. A hoarse roar came from his throat. Soon after, the bloody light in front of him turned into a bloody claw the size of a small mountain. The bloody claw once again swept towards the jade cauldron. However, what shocked Ba Shui was that when the huge bloody claw slammed into the jade cauldron, a strange sound of metal clashing could be heard. However, the jade cauldron did not budge. Roar! While the blood claw and the jade cauldron were in a stalemate, a strange buzzing sound was emitted from the jade cauldron. Soon after, countless earth-shaking dragon roars suddenly exploded in the sky. A scene that caused Ba Shui to be dumbfounded occurred in the sky. The jade cauldron's lid was suddenly lifted and countless phantoms suddenly appeared above the jade cauldron. At a glance, those phantoms were actually the phantoms of ancient true dragons. The smallest of these true dragon phantoms was a few hundred feet tall, while the largest one was tens of thousands of feet tall. It was like a 10,000-foot tall mountain that stretched across the void. Zhuowen and Ba Shui were as tiny as ants in front of this true dragon. What's going on with this jade cauldron? There's actually so much aura of ancient true dragons in it. How is this possible? Ba Shui's face was filled with a sluggish expression. His lips squirmed and the words that came out of his mouth were actually trembling. He knew that he was no longer facing Zhuowen alone. Instead, he was facing the power of countless ancient true dragons. Although the power of the ancient true dragons was incomplete, even he was as insignificant as an ant when faced with so many of them. Crack! Chapter 130. A Blessing in Disguise. Bang! An earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded in the sky. The blood claw that was the size of a small mountain was crushed by the countless true dragon shadows and turned into dust. Impossible! Staring at the blood claw that had turned into dust in the sky, Ba Shui's pupils shrank to the size of needles as he involuntarily screamed. Hee hee! What's impossible? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too unlucky to have met this three-legged jade cauldron that just so happens to restrain you. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. With a wave of his right arm, the jade cauldron in the sky buzzed and countless true dragon shadows dragged the jade cauldron towards Ba Shui. With a loud explosion, a strange sound came from the jade cauldron. Soon after, a strange suction force was emitted from the jade cauldron. Under this suction force, even the tyrant blood was unable to resist. It could only struggle and roar before it was sucked into the jade cauldron by this suction force. Seeing that Ba Shui had been sucked away by the jade cauldron, Zhuowen sighed lightly. The pressure that Ba Shui had given him was too great. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on his body. It was extremely heavy. If not for the jade cauldron's suppressive effect on spirit bodies, he would have really died in the hands of Ba Shui. Buzz! In the sky, after the jade cauldron had sucked away Ba Shui's soul, it buzzed again and returned to Zhuowen's palm with a swoosh. At the same time, Zhuowen's vision turned black and he lost consciousness. When Zhuowen opened his eyes again, the scene before him was not as dark as before. His surroundings were actually emitting a lustrous white light and he could feel a hard, cold feeling coming from the soles of his feet. It was obvious that he was now standing on solid ground. You're awake. What happened to you just now? It was as if your consciousness had dissipated. This dragon lord called you, but you didn't respond. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, a black shadow flashed in front of him. It was Xiao He. Zhuowen's lips curled into a bitter smile. Just now, He had almost been possessed by Ba Shui. If not for the Supreme Dragon Cauldron, the one who had woken up now might have been Ba Shui. However, Zhuowen did not intend to tell Xiao He about this matter. He did not need to worry her. Is this the interior of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye? Why is there not a trace of cold turbulence around me? Zhuowen moved, barely supporting his body as he leaned against a rock wall. His injuries this time were extremely serious. Both his internal and external injuries were not light, and his body was covered in a layer of blood scabs, making him look rather miserable. This is a windless area in the Heaven Fiend Underworld Eye. It just so happens that you can avoid the turbulence. However, once you leave this place, you will die. Xiao He looked at Zhuowen strangely and continued, this time, it was all thanks to an unknown scarlet light. That scarlet light contained a powerful force and wrapped you in a blood cocoon, allowing you to avoid a calamity. Clearly, at the last moment, someone saved your life. Furthermore, this person was an extremely powerful cultivator. However, what I find strange is, who would waste their energy to save you? Xiao He asked doubtfully. Zhuowen was startled. However, when he thought of Ba Shui trying to possess him, he felt relieved. Clearly, that force should have belonged to Ba Shui. Ba Shui must have thought that this possession would definitely succeed. Hence, he would not allow Zhuowen's body to suffer the slightest bit of damage. However, he never expected that Zhuowen still had a hidden trump card like the Supreme Dragon Cauldron in his hands. Just as Zhuowen was thinking about Ba Shui, the Jade Cauldron in his sea of consciousness suddenly buzzed. Soon after, a cool energy suddenly flowed into his Naiwen palace. This is spiritual force? Zhuowen was startled. Soon after, his face revealed an expression of ecstasy. Spiritual force was a great supplement to mental energy. As long as an arcana master absorbed spiritual force, his mental energy would progress much faster. Boom! Boundless spiritual force suddenly flowed into his Naiwen palace from the Jade Cauldron. After absorbing the spiritual force, a light ball the size of a grain of rice in his Naiwen palace rapidly grew in size. How did this kid's mental energy increase so quickly? Looking at this trend, it seems like he is about to break through. Xiao He, who was floating in the air, looked strangely at the youth in front of her, who suddenly sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Zhuowen's mental energy had already reached the spirit focus realm a few months ago. He was only one step away from becoming a Grade 1 Arcana Master. Arcana Masters were divided into 10 major realms, from Grade 1 to Grade 10. Each major realm was further divided into 3 smaller realms, which were Small Success, Large Success, and Perfection. If Zhuowen broke through now, he would be able to reach the Small Success realm of Grade 1. When the light ball in Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace reached its peak, the light ball suddenly expanded by several times. At the same time, a hurricane formed by pure spiritual force suddenly appeared around Zhuowen's body, sweeping in all directions. He broke through. Xiao He's eyes narrowed and could not help but blurt out. However, what surprised her was that Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, did not open them. Instead, the aura in his body surged, and the spiritual force storm around him became even more violent. Is this kid going to continue to break through? When she thought of this possibility, Xiao He's eyes contained a trace of astonishment. Boom! An even more violent spiritual force storm swept across the void. The aftermath of the storm caused even Xiao He to retreat. After all, she was still a spiritual body, and the spiritual force storm was actually quite harmful to her. In her sea of consciousness, the spiritual force transmitted by the Jade Cauldron seemed to be endless. After all, this was the spiritual force of a genuine Fourth Reverend. Even if this Fourth Reverend did not specialize in spiritual force, his spiritual force was not comparable to an ordinary spiritual force. Boom! Another even more violent spiritual force storm swept across the void. In an instant, 2 extremely terrifying spiritual force storms appeared above Zhuowen. In front of these two spiritual force storms, Zhuowen seemed so small. However, what was surprising was that the mountain-like spiritual force storms did not dare to harm the tiny figure below. As the two powerful spiritual force storms rose, an even more powerful spiritual force wave than before came from Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace. The light ball in his Naiwen Palace swelled to the size of a fingernail, and waves of powerful spiritual force continuously emitted from the light ball. This kid actually rose 2 levels in a row, directly skipping the advanced stage and reaching the perfect stage. What's going on? This kid usually does not spend much time tempering his spiritual force. How did he suddenly advance so quickly today? Xiao Hei's face finally showed some disbelief. Its heart was full of doubts about Zhuowen's inexplicable advancement. However, it had a faint guess in its heart that Zhuowen's rapid advancement should be inextricably linked to the blood light. He rose from the realm of not even rank 1 to perfect rank 1 in a short time. This speed is really terrifying. However, this kid should be at his limit. Even if this kid has some opportunities, it's unlikely that he can advance again and reach the level of a rank 2 arcanist. Otherwise, it's really too. At this point, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly stopped. Its small eyes widened to the limit at this time, and an extremely shocked expression appeared in its eyes. In the void behind Zhuowen, the two spiritual force storms that were like pillars supporting the sky did not stop. Instead, they became more and more intense. The powerful spiritual force even seemed like it was about to tear a hole in the void. Rumble. One could only hear a thunder-like explosion that appeared out of nowhere. Immediately, a hurricane that was even thicker than the two mental energy storms from earlier suddenly appeared in the empty space. The powerful mental energy that could destroy the world was emitted from the hurricane, causing even Xiao Hei to feel a little fearful. If it was accidentally swept in, it would be difficult for it to come out. This kid can't be trying to make another breakthrough and reach the level of a rank 2 arcanist, right? The shock in Xiao Hei's eyes instantly turned into fear. As if echoing Xiao Hei's words, the 3 spiritual force storms in the void suddenly merged together, finally forming a huge storm that swept across half the sky. The storm was like a dark cloud that covered the entire void. When this terrifying spiritual force storm appeared in the void behind Zhuowen, its powerful force even tore countless black holes in the void. At this moment, Zhuowen suddenly stood up. His eyes narrowed as he stared at the huge storm behind him. He clenched his right hand into the void, and the huge storm in front of him rapidly shrank at a dazzling speed. In the blink of an eye, it had shrunk to the size of a palm. The palm-sized spiritual force storm quietly floated in the center of Zhuowen's palm. Waves of surging spiritual force suddenly erupted from this storm. He actually broke through to the level of a rank 2 arcanist. This kid is simply too abnormal. In the blink of an eye, he managed to break through 2 major realms in a row. From not even a rank 1 arcanist to a rank 2 arcanist. Even the geniuses from 10,000 years ago might not have been able to achieve this speed. Xiao Hei stared at the calm youth in front of him and the spiritual force storm that was constantly emitting from his palm. The shock on his face slowly disappeared and was replaced by a dazed expression. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was filled with excitement. This time, he had really profited from a disaster. With the help of the Supreme Dragon Cauldron, he had accidentally devoured the spiritual force of the Tyrant Blood and advanced 2 levels in a row. Chapter 131. A Rich Harvest. I didn't expect it to reach rank 2 lower realm in such a short time. It seems like the spiritual energy of the 4 supreme beings is indeed a great supplement. Zhuowen's eyes flickered, filled with a strong sense of surprise. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and the powerful mental energy in his Naiwen Palace gushed out like a tidal wave. In the end, it turned into a huge mental energy storm in front of him. Brat! Not bad, you actually managed to advance to the 2nd rank of Arcana Master. With your current mental strength, even Lu Jitian wouldn't be able to do anything to you. The black puppy floated in front of Zhuo Wen, its eyes constantly sizing him up. Hee hee. Right now, I'm confident that I can defeat Lu Jitian just by relying on my mental energy. If I can escape from the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye this time, I'll turn the Lu family upside down. Zhuo Wen said confidently as he stood up. I didn't think that your arcana mastery would surpass that of a martial artist so quickly. However, your injuries are still quite severe. You need to recuperate first before finding a way to leave this place. But before that, I think we should take a look at the Ice-Fire Holy Rune in the Tyrant Blood storage pouch first. When Xiao He said this, a rare glimmer of hope appeared in its eyes. After all, the sacred symbol was related to the recovery of its spiritual origin source. That's true. When Zhuo heard this, a trace of anticipation appeared in his eyes. After all, he had personally witnessed Tyrant Blood using the Saint Talisman. That kind of power was something even he was looking forward to. As he spoke, Zhuo took out the blood-colored Qiankuan bag by his feet. The surface of the Qiankuan bag had a strange blood-colored pattern. Furthermore, this blood-colored Qiankuan bag was a high-grade Qiankuan bag. Its storage capacity was much higher than the low-grade Qiankuan bag on Zhuowen's waist. Not to mention the treasures inside the Qiankuan bag, just the Qiankuan bag itself was already very valuable. As the Tyrant Blood had completely fallen, the Qiankuan bag had become an ownerless item. Casually wiping away the imprint within the Qiankuan bag, Zhuo unceremoniously opened it and poured out the contents in front of him. Whoosh! A pile of items immediately poured out from the Qiankuan bag, forming a small mountain at Zhuowen's feet. Zhuowen's attention was also attracted by the small mountain at his feet. When he saw the thing that was like a small mountain in front of him, his eyes suddenly emitted a trace of bright light, and his calm face was suddenly replaced by a touch of pleasant surprise. Unexpectedly, what appeared in front of him was a terrifying amount of spiritual medicine. Among them, the lowest was a spiritual medicine of the 2nd tier, and the highest was a spiritual medicine of the 4th tier. Moreover, there was not only one spiritual medicine of the 4th tier, but there were more than 10 of them. Zhuo roughly estimated that there were at least several hundred stalks of spirit herbs in front of him. Moreover, each stalk was of excellent quality. Even if the entire Zhuo family were to pour in all of them, they might not be able to obtain so many spirit herbs. As expected of a 4th revered realm expert. Just the storage bag alone has such a rich reserve of spirit herbs. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with a fiery light, and there was a trace of trembling in his voice. If you bring these spirit herbs back to the family, I'm afraid that the strength of your Zhuo family will increase by a large margin. In just a few years, the overall strength of your Zhuo family will be able to catch up with the Wang family. Xiao He hovered in mid-air and laughed. Zhuo nodded, and immediately shifted his gaze. A blood-red jade strip immediately attracted his attention. A trace of doubt flashed across his face, and Zhuo waved his right hand and caught the blood-red jade strip in his palm. Is this an armor technique? As he spoke, Zhuowen's mental energy had already unceremoniously invaded the jade strip. Soon after, a series of complicated information was transmitted from the jade strip into Zhuowen's mind. High Heaven Rank Armor Technique, Blood-Soaked Sky Tyrant Fist. Using the essence blood of an origin beast as a guide, it mobilizes the vital energy and blood within the body to produce a domineering fist wind. When practiced to a certain level, it can tear apart the sky and pierce through mountains. The moment the very beginning of the information in the jade strip leapt into his mind, Zhuowen's eyes suddenly became blank. Soon after, a trace of surprise and shock flitted across his eyes. He never thought that the seemingly ordinary blood-red jade strip would actually contain a heaven rank armor technique. Moreover, it was the highest level among heaven rank armor techniques. After all, his chaotic origin roaring dragon fist was only at heaven rank middle level. He never thought that the blood-soaked sky tyrant fist recorded in the jade strip would actually be of a much higher level than his chaotic origin roaring dragon fist. When the surprise in Zhuowen's eyes slowly faded away, he once again shifted his gaze upwards. In the end, it rested on a strange talisman. The remaining fire in his eyes burned even more fiercely. This was because the ice-fire holy talisman that he had done everything he could to obtain hovering in front of him. At this moment, the surface of the ice-fire holy talisman was divided into two different areas. The left side was fiery red and contained an extremely scorching energy. The right side was icy blue and emitted a cold aura instead. At the center of the holy talisman was an image that resembled a whirlpool. From this image, Zhuowen could feel the ripples of energy that were ready to explode. He knew that the main reason why the ice-fire holy talisman could perfectly fuse the two extreme energies of ice and fire together was because of the strange image at the center of the holy talisman. Kid, you've seen the image at the center of the ice-fire holy talisman. In fact, that image is the core of the ice-fire holy talisman, and the main source of power of the ice-fire holy talisman comes from this image. Xiao He jumped onto Zhuowen's shoulder and sat down. He crossed his legs and said with a flushed face. Obviously, he was in a good mood after obtaining the ice-fire holy talisman. Glancing sideways at Xiao He, who was a little carried away, Zhuowen smiled and said with a serious face, "When you said that you were absorbing the ice-fire holy talisman, you were actually absorbing the core image at the center of the ice-fire holy talisman, right?" "That's right. However, the ice-fire holy talisman is an extraordinary item. Now that you have not fully recovered from your injuries, there will be a lot of risks if you rashly absorb it. Once you've fully recovered from your injuries, I'll refine a few blended medicines and you'll be able to start absorbing them." The little black dog chuckled as it spoke. Zhuowen nodded slightly. He also knew that this matter could not be rushed. Although his mental strength had reached the terrifying level 2 initial realm, it was only relative to his mental strength. His physical injuries were much more serious. This kind of physical injury could only be slowly nursed back to health in an orderly manner. Fortunately, Zhuowen had a lot of elixirs with him, and the elixirs in the Tyrant Blood Qiankuan bag were even more valuable. These elixirs were enough for Zhuowen to heal his injuries, and there was even a lot left over. Staring at the small mountain of elixirs in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a bright light. He said with a smile, "There are hundreds of elixirs here. In my hands, the number can be increased by 4 times. At this point, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly tapped the space between his eyebrows, and a 3-legged jade cauldron suddenly appeared. The moment the jade cauldron appeared, the small mountain of elixirs on the ground was instantly sucked into the jade cauldron, removing the impurities in the elixirs and turning them into elixirs with pure medicinal strength. Zhuowen casually grabbed a healing elixir and threw it into his mouth without hesitation. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and began to silently heal his injuries. Unlike Zhuowen, who was calmly sitting inside the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye to heal his injuries, Luchuan town was bustling with noise and excitement. In the past few days, almost all the warriors in the town had been talking about one person. To be more precise, it was a 15 or 16-year-old youth. The youth's name was Zhuowen. That night, in front of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye in the Annihilation Forest, most of the warriors in the town had been attracted by the battle between Zhuowen and Lu Jitian. Thus, many of the warriors knew that the youth named Zhuowen had actually snatched a rare treasure from the hands of the 3 strongest warriors in Luchuan town. What shocked everyone even more was that the young man, who was only in the Yin Void realm, had resisted Lu Jitian and the other 2 and successfully escaped from their pursuit. If it wasn't for the existence of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, the young man would have likely escaped from Lu Jitian and the other 2. In addition, the most unbelievable thing was that the dignified Lu family head, Lu Jitian, had not been able to gain an advantage over the youth and had even been injured. It was precisely because of such rumors that Zhuowen's name resounded throughout Luchuan town. Even some of the young warriors had fanatical and worshipful expressions on their faces when they mentioned the youth who had done such a shocking thing. At that moment, there was a mass grave dozens of kilometers away from Luchuan town. There were broken tombstones everywhere in the mass grave. The words on the tombstones had faded quite a bit, and an eerie chill was emitted from them. "Big brother. Is the ancestor really in seclusion in such a place? No matter how I look at it, this place doesn't look like a suitable place for seclusion. Two silhouettes suddenly appeared from the shade of the trees in the distance. A ray of light shone on their faces, revealing their similar faces. They were the Lu family's head and second head, Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen. The primogenitor has lived for over 1,000 years. In order to increase his lifespan, the primogenitor cultivated a cultivation method. This cultivation method can only be successfully cultivated in a place like this where the yin qi is extremely dense. This is the reason why the primogenitor chose this place to cultivate. Also, be careful when you speak later. The ancestor is temperamental. If you accidentally offend him, even I won't be able to protect you. Lu Jitian's face was full of caution as he repeatedly warned Lu Jiwen, who was behind him. Lu Jiwen naturally understood the severity of the situation and hurriedly nodded. When the two of them reached the deepest part of the mass grave, a black tombstone that was as tall as a person proudly stood in front of them. There were no words on the tombstone and it looked bare. However, the eerie aura emitted from it caused the two of them to involuntarily shiver. When they arrived in front of the tombstone, Lu Jitian's expression became increasingly solemn. He took out a black token from his Qiankuan bag and injected the yuan power in his body into the token. Buzz! Chapter 132. Successive promotions boom. As soon as the black light entered the tombstone began to tremble. At the same time, the entire mass grave began to tremble along with the tombstone, as if a giant beast was about to break out of the ground. Awoo! When the tremors gradually calmed down, countless strange black figures rushed out from the mass grave. They were like dark clouds covering the sky, shrouding the entire mass grave in darkness. These? Are they all vengeful spirits from the mass graves? Lu Jiwen stared at the densely packed black figures in the sky and felt his scalp go numb. He could feel that these black figures were not weak. Although he was not afraid of a single human figure, there were thousands of black human figures in the sky. Even he was in a difficult situation when dealing with so many vengeful spirits. That should be the case. It is said that the primogenitor's cultivation technique requires these vengeful spirits. I think that the vengeful spirits here should be controlled by the primogenitor. You don't have to worry about them attacking us. Lu Jitian said calmly. Hee hee. Little guy, you have a good temperament. Just now, I saw you use the Lu family master's token to awaken the tombstone. You must be the current Lu family master. Suddenly, a cold voice rolled over from the sky. The two of them raised their heads and stared. To their surprise, they discovered that the countless vengeful spirits in the sky had suddenly merged together. In the end, they formed a black skull that was several dozen feet in size. There were two green phosphorescent flames burning continuously in the empty eye sockets of the skull. It looked quite strange and eerie. Greetings, Lord Founder. This junior is the current head of the Lu family, Lu Jitian. I am already the 15th head of the Lu family. Lu Jitian and Lu Jiwen respectfully knelt on the ground as Lu Jitian's voice trembled slightly. Lu Jiwen, on the other hand, was still kneeling on the ground. He stole a glance at the skull in the sky with reverence on his face. He could feel the immense pressure emanating from the skull. It was a natural sense of oppression due to the huge difference in their cultivation levels. He knew that the so-called primogenitor in front of him had probably reached the pinnacle of strength. Even he felt an unconcealable pressure from the primogenitor. Is it the 15th? Ever since I established the Lu family, the position of patriarch has changed 15 times. It seems that time has passed really quickly. Unknowingly, nearly 1,000 years have passed. Since you used the patriarch's token to summon me, something must have happened in the family, right? The green phosphorescent flames primogenitor's primogenitor a primogenitor, Lu Jiwen. Lu. A primogenitor. A few days, an unknown youth appeared in Luchuan town, his name is Zhuwen Lu Jian. Lu Jitian Lu. Lu Jianis. Zhuowen. Lu Jiu Lu. Lu 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 Lu. Lu Jitian, who was kneeling on the ground, did not dare to be negligent. He reported the matter of Zhu Wen and the Lu family's situation to the Black Skull. Of course, Lu Jitian also added some details. More than half of the family's elites have been lost. Your son was killed and your third brother was crippled. The culprit behind all this is only a 15-year-old youth whose cultivation level is only at the Yin Void realm. The Lu family primogenitor's voice was calm. It was as if he was narrating something that had nothing to do with him. It seems that the Lu family has been declining while I was in seclusion. Back then, although our Lu family only occupied Luchuan town, our strength was only a hair's breadth away from the Wang family, the #1 family in Vine Armor City. But now, we have suffered such heavy losses just to deal with a brat who smells like milk. Lu Jitian's face twitched. He did not expect the primogenitor to not care about the Lu family's losses. From the primogenitor's words, Lu Jitian could tell that the primogenitor had no feelings for the Lu family. Lu Jitian clenched his teeth and cupped his hands again. He said, "This brat used despicable means to steal the interspatial bag of one of our experts. I estimate that the expert's cultivation level is at least at the ultimate emperor realm. The items in the interspatial bag of such an expert must be very precious." Oh. An ultimate emperor realm expert's interspatial bag? The Lu family primogenitor's voice finally fluctuated. Seeing that the Lu family primogenitor was interested, Lu Jitian eagerly recounted the situation. Of course, Lu Jitian also edited the story. That brat actually jumped into the divine fiend Dark Eye with the interspatial bag? Even I might not be able to return from such a dangerous place. He really has a backbone. From what you said, this brat is also a member of the Zhuo family in Rattan Armor City. Since he is a member of the Zhuo family, I have no choice but to interfere. That old bastard from the Zhuo family plotted against me back then. I will settle this debt with his descendants. Lu Jitian's face immediately lit up with joy when he heard this. He quickly said, Primogenitor, you agree to deal with the Zhuo family. This junior knows that the Wang family of Rattan Armor City and the Zhuo family are not on good terms. We can join forces with the Wang family and completely eradicate the Zhuo family. We will do as you say. This old man used to have a good relationship with some people from the Wang family. Even if those old friends are no longer around, I believe that the Wang family will still give me some face because of this old man's name. In another 2 months, I should be able to come out of closed-door training. You can inform the Wang family in advance. In 2 months, the Zhuo family might be removed from the list. At this point, the black skulls above the mass grave gradually dissipated, revealing the blue sky above. Hee hee. Now that the ancestor has agreed, it's our turn to contact the Wang family. Once the ancestor comes out of seclusion, it will be the day the Zhuo family will be wiped out. Hee hee, Zhuowen, since you're already dead, then the debt you owe will be repaid by your family. Lu Jitian narrowed his eyes as a trace of viciousness slowly leaked out from the slits of his eyes. Big brother. I heard that Zhuo Wen is inextricably linked to Master Kuraki of Rattan Armor City as well as the City Lord's mansion. If we join forces with the Wang family to attack the Zhuo family, I'm afraid that it will be very disadvantageous for us if those two help us. Lu Jiwen suddenly said worriedly. Second brother, don't worry. I heard that in 2 months, the Castellan of Rattan Armor City, Guyu Tian, and Master Kuraki will go to the county city to participate in a grand event. Without these 2 key figures in Rattan Armor City, the other forces will not help the Zhuo family and offend the Wang family and our Lu family. As long as the Zhuo family is wiped out, I'm sure that Guyu Tian and Master Kuraki will not attack our Lu family for the sake of the Zhuo family. Hearing this, Lu Jiwen's eyes revealed a trace of understanding. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. The heaven fiend Dark Eye was shrouded in endless cold turbulence all year round. Even a corporeal young warrior would not dare to enter such a desperate situation. Within the depths of the cold current, in a rather remote and windless area, a delicate and handsome young man was seated cross-legged. Around the young man's body, waves of rich medicinal strength wrapped around him. It seems that this kid has almost recovered. A little black dog floated in mid-air, its pair of small black eyes staring straight at the youth sitting cross-legged. Boom! A thunder-like sound was emitted from within his body. Immediately, waves of ear-piercing sounds of bones being dislocated were emitted from within his body. Then, the endless medicinal power around the young man poured into his body like a river flowing into the sea. An extremely powerful aura slowly emanated from the young man's body. After 2 months of medicinal power, this kid has not only recovered from his injuries, but his cultivation has also improved a lot. Xiao He stared at the young man in front of him and muttered to himself. Xiao He's words had just sounded when the young man in front of him suddenly opened his eyes. After which, the young man inhaled a deep breath of air. His chest expanded to its limit. Immediately, the countless drifting energy particles in the surroundings were sucked into his body. I've stayed in the first level of the Yin Void realm for too long. After this accumulation, I think I can have a big breakthrough. The young man's lips moved a few times, and he whispered to himself. After he finished speaking, the endless yuan qi around the young man's body turned into an invisible whirlwind. Like a whale sucking in water, it fiercely poured into the young man's body. Under this somewhat barbaric infusion, the young man's aura continued to grow. First level of the Yin Void realm. Peak of the first level of the Yin Void realm. Rushing into the second level of the Yin Void realm, the rapid original energy was like a dam bursting out of a dam, reluctantly gathering in his dantian. With a crisp sound, Zhuowen's aura instantly rose to the peak of the second level of the Yin Void realm. This kind of growth continued without any sign of weakening. Boom! When Zhuowen's aura reached the fifth level of the Yin Void realm, the growth of the original energy in his body slowed down. When it reached the sixth level of the Yin Void realm, the aura in Zhuowen's body stabilized completely. Humph! This is not enough. Zhuowen snorted coldly, and suddenly threw out 10 elixirs with strong efficacy from his interspatial bag. The efficacy of each of these elixirs was comparable to that of a level 4 spiritual medicine. Now, Zhuowen took out 10 elixirs at once, which showed how rich he was. Numerous pure efficacy poured into Zhuowen's body. Under this kind of vigorous efficacy, the stagnant aura in Zhuowen's body showed signs of loosening again. With another boom, Zhuowen's aura rose to the 7th level of the Yin Void realm. However, the efficacy of the 10 level 4 elixirs was more than that. With the help of the efficacy, Zhuowen's aura broke through the shackles of the 7th level of the Yin Void realm at a relatively slow speed and reached the 8th level. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen's eyes were full of joy. In fact, this kind of rapid promotion was not beyond Zhuowen's expectation. After all, Zhuowen had gone through a life and death situation, so his comprehension was far beyond that of an ordinary Yin Void realm expert. In addition, there were enough spiritual medicines in the Tyrant Blood interspatial bag. After 2 months of accumulation, Zhuowen was not surprised to have this kind of promotion speed. Chapter 133. Refining the holy symbol of ice and fire. The special characteristic of the ice-fire sacred rune is that it uses 2 extreme powers to forcefully merge together and create an even more terrifying explosive power. According to what I know, the previous owners of the ice-fire holy symbol were all arrogant and domineering. With the help of the Ice Flame Saint Talisman, all the previous owners were able to kill enemies above their level. It can be said that the Ice Flame Saint symbol is the symbol with the heaviest killing intent among the 9 great saint symbols, so when you absorb it later, you must pay attention to the killing intent within the saint symbol. If you can't withstand the erosion of the saint rune's bloodlust, you will become nothing more than a killing machine. The black puppy hovered in the air, looking at the young man not far away and the strange ice-fire holy rune above the young man's head. Since I've already chosen this path, do I have any other choice? After all, high rewards are often accompanied by high risks. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Immediately, a determined look appeared in the depths of his eyes. Good. Since you've decided, let's begin. However, you must remember that if you are unable to endure the absorption process, it is best to withdraw in time. Otherwise, even I will find it difficult to save you. Xiaohe stared deeply at the young man in front of it. Then, it waved its little paw and controlled the holy ice fire rune above to approach Zhuowen. Boy, try to use your mental power to touch the holy symbol of ice fire. Feel the energy fluctuation of the core of the holy symbol of ice fire. As long as you can feel the fluctuation and resonate with it, the chances of you absorbing the holy symbol of ice fire will be very high. When Zhuowen heard Xiaohe's voice, he quickly calmed himself down and focused on expanding the mental strength in his Naiwen palace. His mental strength was like countless tentacles, slowly wrapping around the holy ice fire rune in the air. Sizzle. A somewhat strange sound slowly rang out from the saint symbol. Soon after, the strange pattern at the center of the saint symbol suddenly emitted a five-colored glow. The instant this five-colored glow formed, the two icy blue and fiery red regions at the edge of the saint symbol gradually fell off. In the end, only a strange symbol was left. This symbol was the core pattern of the holy ice fire rune. From time to time, it would emit a colorful light. Although it looked gorgeous, it was actually deadly. This should be the core of the holy ice fire rune. Boy, as long as you can refine this symbol, holy symbol of ice fire rune, you will be able to completely control holy ice fire rune. Xiaohe, who was floating in the air, had a fiery look in its eyes. Even it had never seen the true appearance of a treasure like the holy symbol of heaven and earth. Now that such a treasure was placed in front of it, it was no wonder that it was so excited. The symbol was roughly the size of a palm. However, the frightening aura that was emitted from it caused even Blackie to not dare to be the slightest bit careless. When the symbol appeared, a strange energy that was neither hot nor cold abruptly emerged in the entire space. At the same time, a five-colored ball of energy burst out from the symbol. The powerful five-colored ball of energy cut through the void and finally turned into a huge stone door that was made of ice and fire. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the stone door of ice and fire that had suddenly appeared in the air. He could feel that there was something within the stone door that was calling out to him. Moreover, this feeling was becoming increasingly intense as time passed. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to completely refine the holy ice fire rune, he had to obtain the holy symbol's approval. Only by obtaining the holy symbol's approval would he have the chance to refine it. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were emotionless and his face was calm. Without any hesitation, the powerful mental energy in his Naiwen palace suddenly poured out and turned into a small golden figure above his head. If one looked closely, the small figure looked exactly like Zhuowen. This small figure was an avatar created by Zhuowen's mental energy. The small figure quietly sized up the young man who was sitting cross-legged below. Then, without any hesitation, it charged into the stone door that was made of ice and fire in the void. As Zhuowen's mental energy charged into the stone door, his body completely froze. His face was calm and his eyes were tightly shut, just like a statue. Kid. You have to act according to your ability. Don't force yourself. You have to come out. Otherwise, what am I going to do? Xiaohe rubbed his hands and muttered as he watched Zhuowen charge into the stone door without any hesitation. Silence, endless silence. After Zhuowen passed through the stone door of fire and ice, what appeared in front of him was actually a road that stretched as far as the eye could see. The road was surrounded by dense fog, and it was simply impossible to distinguish the surrounding scenery. What was strange was that the top of the road was a world of ice and snow. The endless snowflakes were blown by the cold currents, and the road was covered in a layer of white snow. Below the road, there was a boundless sea of magma, and a fiery aura assaulted their nostrils. The scenery above and below the path was so extreme, but it just so happened that they appeared on the same path at the same time. Zhuowen did not hesitate and stepped into the path. He knew that there was no way out and the only thing he could do was to keep moving forward. 1 day. 2 days. 1 month. 2 months. Half a year. Time passed like this and Zhuowen kept walking on this path. In the process of walking like an ascetic monk, Zhuowen's gaze became more and more determined. He did not know where the end of this path was. He also did not know how long he had to walk. He did not even have the slightest concept of time. However, he only believed that he could not stop walking. Even if he was just walking like a machine, he firmly believed that he could not stop walking. As he walked, the vitality and strength in his body gradually dissipated. In the end, he grew old as he walked. His body became haggard and his gaze became a lot more turbid. However, this could not hide the firm belief in Zhuowen's eyes that he would never give up and his heart that would never stop. The path is in the heart. All illusions are just illusions. Only one's willpower exists forever. This is the seamless path of ice and fire. Little chap, your strength is too weak, but your willpower is very strong. Have you seen through this seamless path now? A vigorous voice came from the depths of the void. It was like the echo of a valley that constantly rippled through the entire void. At this moment, Zhuowen no longer had the appearance of a young man with a delicate face. Instead, he had the appearance of an old man with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. However, his eyes were still brimming with spirit, as if nothing could dim the light in his eyes. What's the difference between seeing through it and not seeing through it? Since I believe that the path is right in front of me, I will follow my will and walk down it without regret. Even if I die on the path, as long as I have a clear conscience, it will be the right thing to do. Zhuowen raised his head slightly. His turbid eyes were filled with a sharp light as he quietly stared at the void. He knew that there must be a pair of eyes in the void silently observing this place. Only the Ice Fire Saint Talisman's talisman spirit would be able to peep at this place. Zhuowen knew that only by gaining the recognition of the symbol spirit would he be able to completely control the power of the Ice Fire sacred symbol. Little chap, it's really rare for you to have such a comprehension at such a young age. A loud laugh came from the void. Soon after, Zhuowen saw a ray of light appear at the other end of the path. This ray of light was also spreading out. Zhuowen pursed his lips and suddenly took a step forward. Soon after, the path behind him suddenly distorted and exploded like glass. Then, the distorted space turned into a beautiful starry sky. Zhuowen stepped on the starry sky. His white hair gradually turned black. The wrinkles on his face also gradually disappeared. Finally, an old man instantly turned into a delicate young man. In front of him, an ancient rune was quietly suspended in the air. An ancient and vicissitude aura was instantly emitted from this rune. Looking at the rune, Zhuowen's lips curled into a smile. He knew that the rune in front of him should be the symbol spirit of the Ice Fire sacred symbol. Little chap, you are the first person to step into my spiritual space in 10,000 years. The fact that you can reach this place already shows how strong your willpower is and how terrifying your talent is. However, it won't be so easy if you truly want to obtain control of the Ice Fire Saint symbol. A voice that carried the vicissitudes of life sounded from the symbol. It was like a buzzing sound in Zhuowen's ears. Zhuowen stood in front of the rune and bowed respectfully. The sacred symbol was a supreme treasure that had existed since the beginning of the world. Zhuowen naturally did not dare to slight such an ancient existence. Elder, what do you mean? Zhuowen asked respectfully. I'll tell you the truth. The Ice Fire sacred symbol you obtained was merely formed from a wisp of my origin energy. It is not my actual body. However, I didn't expect you to be able to walk out of the seamless path of ice and fire and enter my spiritual space. It seems that you are not simple. The rune's voice sounded again. However, there was a trace of surprise and amazement in its voice. Only a wisp of origin energy? Zhuowen's face instantly turned green when he heard this. According to this rune, what he had risked his life to snatch wasn't the main body of the holy ice-fire rune. It was merely a strand of origin energy similar to a clone. Hee hee. Don't underestimate this wisp of origin energy. It replicates 20% of my actual body's power. If you can control this wisp of origin energy, you can forcefully combine the power of ice and fire to create an even more powerful explosive power. This should be enough for you. A cold laugh came from the rune. Chapter 134. A promise of 10 years, little guy. His temperament was not bad. There was no free lunch in this world. How much you wanted to get, you had to pay the price. Sometimes, gains and sacrifices are equivalent. Another loud laughter came from the talisman. However, the laughter quickly came to an abrupt end. Following which, the voice from the rune became somewhat solemn. This wisp of power of origin was intentionally spread to the outside world by this seat, for the sake of finding a fated person. Little guy, you can rely on your will to enter my soul space. You're not ordinary. Therefore, I only have one request, and that is that you must join the Divine Academy. Excellent God's Academy. Zhuowen was startled. He had never thought that the symbol spirit would actually mention the Divine Academy. This was already the second time he had heard the name, Divine Academy. Last time, when they were fighting for the holy symbol of ice-fire, Aoki had also mentioned it. And the fallen tyrant blood seemed to be a member of the Divine Academy. Haven't you heard of Garcia Academy? The Fu Ling also sensed the confusion on Zhuowen's face and asked in bewilderment. Zhuowen nodded like a hoodlum, indicating that he really didn't know. Looks like you're from a very remote place. You haven't even heard of the Divine Academy. You should also know that Blue Dragon Hall is the #1 power in the Eastern Lands, and Fine God Academy's strength is only below Blue Dragon Hall. It can be said that they are the #2 power in the Eastern Lands. You must know that the Eastern Lands is vast, and there are countless powers within it. To be able to stand out from so many powers and become the second largest power in the Eastern Lands, it can be seen how powerful the Divine Academy is. When Zhuowen heard this, his eyes narrowed. He never would have thought that this so-called Fine Gods College was actually the second strongest power in the East. Their overall strength was only below the Blue Dragon Hall. Although Zhuowen wasn't clear about the distribution of power in the Eastern Land, he knew that the Eastern Land was very vast. From some ancient books, it could be seen that the area of the Eastern Land was several times larger than the Earth in his previous life. From this, one could see how big the entire Eastern Land was. Moreover, the Qing Xian Empire that Zhuowen belonged to seemed to be a small force among the countless forces in the entire Eastern Land. However, the strength of the strongest person in such a small force, Emperor Qing, had already reached the sovereign realm. Then, wouldn't those forces that were much stronger than the Qing Xian Empire have experts of the pilgrimage realm? On the Heavenly Armor continent, Saint Pilgrim realm powerhouses were hailed as saints by many warriors. Warriors who could reach such heights were almost at the top of the entire continent. Whether it was in terms of power or prestige, they had reached the point where they were revered by tens of thousands. My request is very simple. There is an ancient hall in the center of the Divine Academy. It is called the Hall of Ice and Fire. It contains both the extreme powers of ice and fire. The hall has a total of 18 levels. As long as you can enter the first 8 levels, I can use my origin energy to forcefully drag you to the 18th level. My main body is on the 18th level. The talisman spirit's voice fluctuated slightly. When Zhuowen heard this, the corners of his mouth curled into a bitter smile. The talisman spirit said it so easily. Since the Divine Academy was the second most powerful force in the Eastern Land, its standards for accepting disciples must be very strict. With his current level, it would be very difficult for him to enter the Divine Academy. The talisman spirit seemed to have sensed Zhuowen's apprehension and sneered, "Kid. This seat has already said that if you want to gain something, you have to pay a price. If you can't even enter the Divine Academy, then you should get out of here as soon as possible. The holy symbol of ice and fire is not something that a timid person like you can control. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen nodded and said, I promise you that I will try my best to enter the Divine Academy. However, the Hall of Ice and Fire shouldn't be easy to enter. Heh. Of course, since you've already agreed, this source energy will naturally belong to you. However, you only have 10 years. If you're unable to complete the mission I've given you in 10 years, I'll take back this source energy from you. Therefore, it's best for you to work hard to improve yourself. I'm looking forward to meeting you again at Fine God Academy. When the talisman spirit finished speaking, its voice abruptly stopped as if it had fallen into a deep sleep. However, the strange runes in the depths of the starry sky split into two and shot into the back of Zhuowen's hands. Zhuowen only felt a wave of heat on the back of his hand. Soon after, two special runes appeared clearly on the back of his hand. Kid. Remember, you only have 10 years. Now that my origin energy is almost exhausted, I must fall into a deep sleep. Therefore, I look forward to our next meeting. Before I leave, I will give you a small gift. The runes on the back of his hands suddenly brightened. The familiar voice of the talisman spirit once again appeared in his mind. Immediately, a strange energy shot into his Qiankuan bag. One could see a black-colored bead flying out of the bag and suspended in the midair. A familiar ripple was suddenly emitted from the bead after this energy completely entered it. Immediately, a dark black ink-like flame suddenly surged out and transformed into a black-colored pillar that seemed to pierce through the sky. Nirvana Demon Flame. Looking at the fire pillar that shot towards the sky in front of him, he also knew that the small gift that the talisman spirit had mentioned should be to help him awaken the Nirvana Demon Flame from its deep sleep in advance. The fire pillar seemed to want to pierce through the sky as it stood in the empty space. Zhuowen could sense that the Nirvana Demon Flame's strength had already reached an extremely powerful level ever since it had absorbed the endless resentment within the evil fiend Devil Bead. If the strength of the Nirvana Demon Flame in the past had barely reached the level of the human stage, the current Nirvana Demon Flame's strength had undoubtedly reached the level of the peak of the human stage. The strength of the Nirvana Demon Flame at this level was not weaker than an ordinary peak corporeal yang expert. It was likely that it did not even need to fear a half-step to the Bright King stage expert. Zhuowen looked deeply into the empty space before bowing respectfully. He also knew the intention of the talisman spirit's actions. Rumble. At the same time, a thunder-like loud sound was transmitted from the empty space. Immediately, the entire bright starry sky began to distort after this loud sound. Zhuowen's consciousness also descended into darkness. When Zhuowen once again opened his eyes, he coincidentally saw a Xiaohei dog in front of him. The dog's face was filled with fear as it stared at him. The worry in Xiaohei's eyes gradually faded when he saw that Zhuowen had safely opened his eyes. Instead, he laughed shamelessly, hee. This dragon lord knew that you were very lucky and would not fall into a deep sleep without waking up. This dragon lord is really clever. Xiaohei rolled his eyes at the conceited Xiaohei dog in front of him. He could be considered to have gained a new understanding of the shamelessness of this Xiaohei dog in front of him. He did not know who was the one who had been staring at him with a worried expression earlier. Now that he had woken up, the dog began to boast. How many days have passed? Zhuowen rubbed his head and asked. About half a day. You were not in there for long. Speaking of which, did you manage to refine the holy talisman in the end? Xiaohei suddenly asked nervously. Zhuowen smiled and stretched out the back of his hands. There were two runes that almost matched each other on the back of his hands. If the two runes were combined together, they would form a complete rune. This rune was the core rune of the Holy Ice Fire rune. You refined it? That's great. It seems that this dragon lord did not misjudge you. You actually managed to refine the Holy Ice Fire rune. With the Holy Ice Fire rune, you are destined to embark on the path of an unparalleled expert. Xiao Hei's eyes lit up when he saw the rune on the back of Zhuowen's hand. Seeing the joy on Xiao Hei's face, Zhuowen hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still told Xiao Hei about the agreement between the symbol spirits. Xiao Hei rubbed his chin with both paws. His gaze became serious, and his face suddenly became somewhat gloomy. Kid. According to what I know, although the holy talisman is a treasure of heaven and earth and has a unique and powerful strength, the world is fair. The holy talisman has a powerful strength, but it does not have intelligence. Zhuowen's heart suddenly jumped when he heard this. If what Xiao Hei said was true, and the holy talisman did not have intelligence, then who was the owner of the holy talisman talking to him in that strange space? That's impossible. After all, the saint talisman origin in my body was given to me by the person who called himself the symbol spirit. If he wasn't the symbol spirit of the saint talisman, how could he control the ice flame saint talisman and separate a strand of its origin energy? Zhuowen's heart became increasingly confused. After Xiao Hei's reminder, there were indeed some loopholes in the words of the person who called himself the symbol spirit. Moreover, his tone was somewhat urgent, as if he could not wait any longer. The symbol spirit of the holy talisman is not the only one who can separate the holy talisman's origin energy. The true owner of the holy talisman also has this ability. However, forcefully separating the origin energy will cause some harm to the owner. Normally, the owner of the holy talisman will not do such a thankless task. Xiao Hei narrowed his eyes, and his voice had completely calmed down. The owner of the holy talisman? Then why would he do such a thing? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly as he continued to ask. Perhaps this mystery can only be solved when you enter Jiaxin Academy. However, you have to be extra careful with the owner of the holy talisman. That guy definitely does not have good intentions. Fortunately, you have only obtained a strand of the holy ice fire rune's origin energy. However, this is already a great opportunity for you. Xiao Hei said cautiously. Zhuowen nodded slightly. After all, he had a 10-year agreement with the owner of the holy talisman. During these 10 years, the holy ice fire rune's origin energy in his body completely belonged to him. That's right. Since this holy ice fire rune is not complete, does it still help with the recovery of your soul energy origin energy? Zhuowen suddenly asked curiously. There should be more, but it is not as obvious as a complete holy talisman. Xiao Hei said as he nodded slightly. Chapter 135. Leaving the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, Kid, the cold air current in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye is not simple. Even a corporeal Yang stage warrior would be smashed to pieces if they entered. Do you have the confidence to break out of this cold air current area? Xiao Hei stared at the youth in front of him in astonishment. I have already mastered the ice fire holy symbol. Although it is not complete, its power is extraordinary. The ice fire holy symbol has the ability to control the cold air and the power of fire. Although the cold air current in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye is powerful, it is only an ordinary cold current. It is only because there is so much cold air here that it has become such a dangerous situation. Zhuowen stared at the cold air current that was constantly sweeping up above him. His eyes were filled with calmness. What you said makes sense. However, if you really can't hold on, you can use the power of the ice fire holy symbol to forcefully recover this dragon lord. At that time, this dragon lord will bring you out of this damned place. Xiao Hei nodded and agreed. In that case, let's try the power of the ice fire holy symbol. As Zhuowen spoke, he clenched his right hand into the air and the symbol on the back of his hand suddenly emitted an icy blue light. The symbol on the back of his right hand represented the power to control the cold air, so it displayed an icy blue color. The symbol on his left hand represented the power to control the power of fire, so it should display a fiery red color. The instant Zhuowen extended his right hand, the cold chi flow above the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye seemed to have stopped. It instantly came to a standstill. Immediately, it stopped for around 15 minutes before the endless cold chi flow in the sky suddenly poured into the symbol on the back of Zhuo Wen's hand like 10,000 rivers rushing into the sea. Zhuo Wen only felt a chill on the back of his hand. Immediately after, he felt a cool and strange energy enter his body. This strange energy spread to his limbs and bones, making him feel an indescribable sense of comfort all over his body. Then, the endless cold air current in the sky surrounded Zhuowen. Being in the huge cold air current, Zhuowen did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Instead, he felt cool and comfortable. Under the cover of the cold air current, Zhuowen's body gradually floated up. As expected of the ice-fire holy symbol. The cold air current of the heaven fiend dark eye is like an obedient child in front of it. It doesn't dare to be presumptuous at all. Zhuo Wen sensed the cold energy flow around him that was like a barrier. He could feel that when he used the ice rune on his right hand, the cold energy flow transmitted traces of reverence. Obviously, the cold air current chi did not dare to be presumptuous in front of the ice-fire holy symbol. After all, the ice-fire holy symbol was a treasure that had existed since the beginning of heaven and earth. The ice-fire holy symbol contained the ice symbol and the fire symbol. It contained a pressure that all the cold air and flames in heaven and earth feared. Although the ice-fire holy symbol that Zhuowen currently possessed was incomplete, it was not something that the ordinary cold air of the heaven fiend dark eye could defy. Moreover, Zhuowen could feel that as he floated up, the ice symbol continuously absorbed the endless cold air around him. As the cold air was continuously absorbed by the symbol, Zhuowen could feel a strange energy entering his body from the back of his hand. After this energy entered his body, it continuously nourished the Yuan power in his Dantian and the mental energy in his Naiwen palace. Zhuowen knew that this strange energy was most likely transformed from the cold air absorbed by the ice symbol. What surprised Zhuowen was that under the nourishment of this strange energy, the Yuan power and mental energy in his body increased. No wonder Xiao He had said that the ice-fire holy symbol had undeniable benefits for both cultivators and arcana masters. There were still quite a number of cultivators at the edge of the heaven fiend dark eye, constantly searching and searching. 2 months ago, a young man called Zhuowen had fearlessly faced the 3 strongest cultivators of Luchuan town. After experiencing a disastrous battle, this young man had finally chosen to enter the heaven fiend dark eye. Along with his disappearance was the mysterious treasure that the Lu clan and the Mercenary Alliance had been searching for. Many cultivators were here with the mentality of trying their luck. They knew that if the mysterious treasure in Zhuowen's hands was coincidentally thrown out by the cold air current of the heaven fiend dark eye and found by them, they would very likely rise to prominence. It was with this mentality of trying their luck that most of the cultivators of Luchuan town were here. They tirelessly searched every corner of the heaven fiend dark eye. However, to their disappointment, they did not even see the shadow of the mysterious treasure. Although they had not seen any signs of the mysterious treasure after 2 months of searching, this place had become increasingly lively. Originally, most of the people here were from the Lu clan and the Mercenary Alliance. However, due to the fact that Zhuowen had single-handedly defeated the 3 strongest cultivators of Luchuan town that day, many cultivators who did not belong to either side had come because of his reputation. It was precisely because of Zhuowen's powerful performance 2 months ago and the rumors that constantly spread in Luchuan town that had intentionally or unintentionally molded Zhuowen into a genius youth who was not afraid of strong enemies. Even the Lu clan and the Mercenary Alliance did not expect that the great battle that day would bring Zhuowen such great popularity. His popularity had even faintly surpassed the current Lu clan and the Mercenary Alliance. What's that? The heaven fiend dark eye seems to have gone berserk. The originally quiet environment at the edge of the heaven fiend dark eye was immediately broken by a surprised voice. As the voice sounded, countless cultivators here turned their gazes towards the heaven fiend dark eye in the sky. When they saw the scene of the heaven fiend dark eye clearly, a trace of shock surfaced on their faces. In the sky above the heavenly fiend dark eye, the gigantic eyeball that was formed by endless cold aura suddenly trembled. The endless cold aura actually formed a huge spiral vortex at the pupil of the eyeball. It was as if there was a powerful energy in the depths of the pupil that stirred up the cold aura of the entire heavenly fiend dark eye. What's going on? Why is such a strange phenomenon happening in the heaven fiend dark eye? That's right. The heaven fiend dark eye has been sitting peacefully in the depths of the annihilation forest for thousands of years. Today, it seems to be a little restless, as if someone is wantonly destroying it inside. On the empty ground, there was an uproar in an instant. Countless cultivators raised their heads to look at the heaven fiend dark eye that had begun to churn violently. The cold air currents on the surface of the heaven fiend dark eye were like blades that swept across the entire space, cutting it apart. Some of the cold air currents that leaked out even sprayed onto the empty ground. Some of the cultivators who could not dodge in time were immediately seriously injured by the cold air currents. At the empty ground where the cold air currents landed, a deep pit that was several feet in size was smashed out. Staring at the deep pit created by the cold air currents in front of them, all the cultivators' pupils contracted. They did not expect that just one cold air current could cause such a huge destructive force. If countless cold air currents with such terrifying power appeared at the same time, many of the cultivators felt a chill in their hearts at the thought of this possibility. No wonder the heaven fiend dark eye was called a dead end. The cold air flow inside was too terrifying. Just one wave was enough to make them unable to withstand it. Quick, look! It seems like something is coming out from inside. Oh my God, in such a terrifying cold air current, what kind of existence is able to remain unharmed in the cold air current? As these words fell, the other cultivators also cast their gazes towards the depths of the heaven fiend dark eye. Indeed, as the previous person had said, there was indeed a dark figure in the depths, slowly moving towards the outside. What made these cultivators even more incredulous was that the figure that seemed to be coming out from the depths of the heaven fiend dark eye seemed to be a human figure. In other words, it was very likely that the figure that had appeared from the depths of the heaven fiend dark eye was a human cultivator. Thinking of this possibility, it immediately caused the hearts of all the martial artists to tremble fiercely. To be able to come out unscathed from so many terrifying cold air currents, just what level of strength did this martial artist have? Under the gazes of so many people, in the depths of the heaven fiend dark eye, a figure surrounded by endless cold air finally appeared in front of everyone. However, what made everyone stunned again was that this figure was actually a 15 or 16-year-old youth. The youth's face was delicate and handsome, and his expression was indifferent. At a glance, he seemed to be harmless to both humans and animals. This youth was Zhuowen, who had just come out of the heaven fiend dark eye. With the help of the ice runes in his body, it was not difficult for Zhuowen to walk out of the heaven fiend dark eye. The youth gently waved his right hand, and the cold air currents around his body immediately supported him as he slowly landed on the ground. As the youth landed, everyone's gazes gathered on him. The youth also noticed the gazes around him. He frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Everyone, is there anyone from the Lu family or the Mercenary Alliance here?" As the youth's voice fell, all the cultivators present involuntarily cast their gazes in the same direction. In that direction, there was a group of neatly dressed cultivators. The leader of this group of cultivators seemed to have reached the half-step corporeal yang stage. Hee. Don't even think about leaving today. All of you will stay here. Zhuowen stared at the neatly dressed cultivators, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a cold arc. Soon after, Zhuowen suddenly took out the dragon vein saber, which was as tall as a person, from his Jianquan bag. Then, his entire body turned into a ghost as he rushed towards the group of people. When the leader of the group heard Zhuowen's words, he was a little angry and sneered, "What an arrogant brat. You actually dare to speak such arrogant words. Do you know what kind of colossus our Lu family is? It's precisely because I know that you are from the Lu family that I came to find you. Otherwise, do you think I have nothing better to do?" A cold voice suddenly came from behind the leader. The leader suddenly turned his head and saw a youth smiling at him. Soon after, a huge broadsword swept towards him. Bang! Under the huge force of the dragon vein saber, the leader of the Lu family was instantly sent flying. In the end, he flew into the heaven fiend Dark Eye, which was filled with cold air. A shrill scream came from the heaven fiend Dark Eye. Soon after, the scream came to an abrupt end. When the scream came to an abrupt end, the empty ground instantly fell into silence. Then, a series of difficult swallowing sounds suddenly rang out. The Lu family leader's cultivation had reached the half-step corporeal yang stage. He was considered the strongest among these cultivators, but he was killed by this youth in one move. Chapter 136. Breaking into the Lu family. Zhuwen did not stop after dealing with the leader of the Lu family in one move. He moved like a ghost and flashed towards the rest of the Lu family troops who had already become sluggish. Shrill screams rose and fell in the empty ground. They were incomparably loud. In the blink of an eye, all the troops of the Lu clan on the empty ground had been slaughtered by the young man who had suddenly appeared. The young man's eyes flickered as he stared at the surrounding martial artists who were trembling with fear. Then, he leaped and transformed into a shadow as he rushed towards the depths of the dense forest. Very quickly, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Who is this kid? He has such a terrifying cultivation at such a young age. Even a half-step young corporeal realm warrior was instantly killed. What's even more unbelievable is that this kid actually came out from the heavenly fiend Dark Eye. The warriors on the open space sighed as they watched the youth's figure gradually disappear into the distance. Soon after, it caused an uproar. Many warriors were curious. Who was that youth? A person who could instantly kill a half-step young corporeal realm warrior was definitely not a nobody. I remember now. This kid should be the legendary Zhuowen who has been the talk of Luchuan town for the past few days. I recognize this kid's broadsword. He once relied on this broadsword to escape from the encirclement of Lu Jitian and the other two experts in the cave. Suddenly, a voice of sudden realization resounded across the entire empty ground. Immediately, the empty ground became somewhat quiet. The silent atmosphere only lasted for a moment before an even louder clamor resounded throughout the open space. He's the Zhuowen who resisted the encirclement of Lu Jitian, Lu Jiwen, and Qian Shang and obtained the rare treasure in the end? Oh my god. This guy is too abnormal. Wasn't he forced to jump into the heavenly fiend Dark Eye 2 months ago? Now, he can actually rely on his own strength to come out again. What kind of strength does he need to do this? It seems like the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance have really provoked an opponent they shouldn't have. I can feel that Zhuowen's strength has become somewhat terrifying. This time, the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance are really unlucky. In the open space, all the warriors looked into the depths of the forest with complicated gazes. They knew that the youth was definitely heading to Luchuan town, and his target was the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance. In the main hall of the Lu family, Lu Jiwen sat upright at the head of the table. His eyes were slightly squinted, and he seemed to be at ease. Reporting to Second Master, we have captured the remaining members of the Flowing Flame mercenary group. How should we deal with them? A black figure suddenly rushed into the hall, knelt on one knee, and respectfully reported to Lu Jiwen. Oh. After spending 2 months to catch them, it seemed like the remnants of the Flowing Flame mercenary group were quite good at hiding. Bring them all up. I want to personally interrogate these people. After all, my third brother was crippled because of them. Lu Jiwen's lips curled into a cruel smile as he spoke indifferently. Yes. The black-clothed person respectfully lowered his head. Immediately, he gently withdrew from the hall. Not long later, he led a couple of people into the hall. These people were wearing heavy shackles on their bodies. As they walked, they would occasionally emit ear-piercing clanging sounds. This group of people was none other than Han Shui and the others. Other than the two sisters, Han Shui and Han Yu, even the simple and honest uncle Feng Yu, the girl in red, and the white-clothed youth, Feng Gong, were present. Lu Jiwen, What right do you have to capture our flowing flame mercenary group? In the hall, Han Shue's beautiful eyes were filled with anger as she tenderly shouted. What right do I have? If it weren't for you, how could my third brother have been crippled? I'm already merciful enough that I haven't killed you yet, and you still want to ask me why. Lu Jiwen coldly chuckled. With a wave of his right hand, a surge of yuan power immediately poured out. Han Shue's beautiful face was filled with stubbornness, but under this surge of yuan power, her face instantly turned pale. Her knees bent, and she involuntarily knelt in the hall. Since you're already a prisoner, you should act like one. If you provoke me, I don't mind killing you as an example to others. Han Shue's expression froze, and her eyes suddenly turned red. However, in the end, she did not say anything. She knew that Lu Jiwen was a man of his words. If she still dared to speak like she did just now, she was afraid that Lu Jiwen would really kill her as an example to others. Lu Jiwen's words also had a certain effect. Not only Han Shui, but even the others did not dare to say anything. It's all that Zhuowen's fault. Even after his death, he still implicated us. If he hadn't crippled the Lu family's third head, our flowing flame mercenary group would not have fallen to such a state. The white-clothed youth, Feng Gong, who had been following at the back, suddenly complained in a low voice. If it weren't for Big Brother Zhuowen's rescue that day, I'm afraid that our flowing flame mercenary group would have already ceased to exist. Now, you're actually starting to complain about Big Brother Zhuowen. Feng Gong, I used to think that you were a real man, but I never imagined that it was all just a disguise. You're just a despicable person in your bones. The red-dressed girl glanced at the white-clothed youth behind her with some disgust as she spoke in an indifferent tone. When the white-clothed youth heard the girl's mocking words, his face immediately turned red. He wanted to defend himself, but found that he had nothing to say. In the end, he could only coldly snort and fall into silence. Lu Jiwen's gaze was rather strange as he looked at everyone in the hall. Just as he was about to speak, a commotion suddenly broke out from outside. What's going on? Why is it so noisy outside? Lu Jiwen frowned slightly as he spoke in an unhappy tone. Bang! A dull sound rang out, and soon after, a black shadow shot out like an arrow towards Lu Jiwen, who was seated at the head of the hall. Lu Jiwen's pupils shrank as he waved his right hand. His powerful yuan power suddenly turned into a yuan power palm, which fiercely struck the black shadow. With a dull sound, Lu Jiwen finally saw the true face of the black shadow that was shooting towards him. It was actually a warrior. To be more precise, it was the black-clothed man who had just reported to him. At this moment, the black-clothed man's eyes were wide open as he stared straight at Lu Jiwen. Blood mixed with pieces of internal organs spat out from his mouth. Finally, he spat out a few words with difficulty before his eyes closed and he completely lost his breath. That Zhuowen has returned. He is not dead. When Lu Jiwen heard the black-clothed man's last words, his pupils shrank again as his calm gaze was suddenly replaced by horror. Zhuowen? How is that possible? That kid has already entered the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. You should know that even a young corporeal realm warrior would definitely die in that place, let alone that kid who is only in the Yin Void realm. Lu Jiwen's gaze suddenly became a little uncertain. He could tell that the black-clothed man's words were probably true, but he was unwilling to believe it. The Heaven Fiend Dark Eye was a famous place of death in the Annihilation Forest. With Zhuowen's weak strength, how could he possibly walk out of there alive? Thump! Thump! Steady and rhythmic footsteps gradually sounded throughout the entire hall. Immediately, a somewhat skinny but extremely tall figure gradually appeared in front of everyone. The clear footsteps attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. Following the source of the sound, Han Shui and the other four, who were shackled, and Lu Jiwen, who was seated at the head of the hall, involuntarily turned their gazes towards the door. Patter! Finally, the moment the figure stepped into the hall, the atmosphere in the hall seemed to have solidified. Whether it was Han Shui, Han Yu, the other three, or even Lu Jiwen, who was seated at the head of the hall. They all stared blankly at the tall figure that had just appeared in the hall. Lu Jiwen rubbed his eyes hard until he was sure that he was not mistaken. Then, the dullness in his eyes loosened a little. However, within the dullness, there was more disbelief and extreme horror. This was because the person who had appeared in the hall was actually the stubborn youth, Zhuowen, who had been forced into the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye by the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance 2 months ago. Zhuowen? He is not dead. Han Shui also woke up from her daze. Staring at the youth who had appeared in the hall, her eyes involuntarily welled up with tears. On the other hand, Han Yu, Feng Yu, and the red-dressed young lady all revealed a relaxed feeling as though a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. The corners of their mouths also revealed a gratified smile. Only the white-clothed young man's expression had become somewhat gloomy. Lu Jiwen, today, I, Zhuowen, will take the lives of the Lu family. The youth stood quietly in the middle of the hall. His body, which was not very muscular, faintly emitted a powerful aura like that of a wild beast. I really did not expect that a bastard like you would still be alive. I guess you were able to walk out of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye because you relied on a treasure in the expert's Qiankuan bag. Hee, such a treasure would be wasted on you. Only by giving it to the Lu family can we make the best use of it. The dullness on Lu Jiwen's face slowly faded away. It was replaced by a ferocious smile and a trace of greed in his eyes. He could feel that Zhuowen's aura had reached LV8 of the Yin Void Realm. He remembered that 2 months ago, Zhuowen's cultivation was only at LV1 of the Yin Void Realm. In just 2 months, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Therefore, the Qiankuan bag must have contributed to this. Moreover, since Zhuowen was able to escape from the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye, there must be a treasure in the Qiankuan bag that was not afraid of the cold air current of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Thinking of the various benefits in the Qiankuan bag, the greed in Lu Jiwen's eyes became more intense. Boy! Even if you rely on the various benefits in the Qiankuan bag to make your cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, your cultivation is only at LV8 of the Yin Void Realm, while I am at LV1 of the Corporeal Yang Realm. To me, you are like an egg striking a stone. If you don't want to suffer more physical pain, you'd better hand over the Qiankuan bag obediently. Lu Jiwen suddenly took a step forward. The original energy in his body poured out like an ocean, and the ferocious look on his face became more intense. Chapter 137. Fighting a young reality realm martial artist, Zhuowen. You have to be careful. Lu Jiwen is a first-stage corporeal young martial artist. In the hall, Han Shui's pretty face was filled with worry as she spoke. Zhuowen nodded slightly and smiled at Han Shui. I know, but this guy is nothing to me. I'll take care of him later and then release the shackles on your bodies. Truly a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. 2 months ago, I don't know who was forced by us to jump into the Heavenly Fiend Dark Eye. Although I don't know how you escaped from the Heaven's Fiend Dark Eye, you still dare to come to our Lu family and cause trouble. I have to say that you are stupid. Lu Jiwen was so angry that he laughed. At that time, it was because the 3 of you joined forces that I was no match for you. Now, it's just you alone. Do you think you have the confidence to keep me here? Moreover, I have also obtained many benefits from the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Now, even if the 3 of you join forces again, I'm afraid that you won't be a match for me. Zhuowen placed his hands on the hilt of his saber and said indifferently. What a sharp-tongued brat. You only know how to talk big. Now, I want to see if you've really improved a lot as you said. Lu Jiwen let out a sinister laugh. Both his legs suddenly stomped on the ground, and his entire body shot towards Zhuowen like an arrow leaving the bow. The yuan power in his body was like a vast ocean, and it poured out like a broken dam. The air in the entire hall seemed to have solidified due to this fluctuation. Earth-splitting seal. A deep roar sounded out from Lu Jiwen's throat. Soon after, Lu Jiwen's hands formed a seal as a powerful yuan power transformed into a glowing seal on his palms. Holding the light seal in his hand, Lu Jiwen revealed a sinister smile. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and pressed his palm down. An earth-shattering vibration suddenly shook the entire hall. Soon after, spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground. The cracks gradually expanded, and finally, countless sharp spikes emerged from the cracks. The earth spikes were like the fangs of a giant beast as they shot towards Zhuowen. They were so dense that they almost enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. Sister. Will Zhuowen be a match for Lu Jiwen? Han Yu's face immediately turned incomparably pale as she stared at the earth spikes that were densely packed like raindrops. She could feel the frightening power contained within those earth spikes. She might not even be able to block one of them, let alone the seemingly endless earth spikes. A bitter smile appeared on Han Shue's face when she heard Han Yu's question. How could she not have sensed the powerful might of the earth spike? Although she had never underestimated Zhuowen, he was a corporeal Yang realm warrior after all. Such an expert was already at the pinnacle of Luchuan town. However, Zhuowen's aura was only at level 8 of the Yin Void realm. There was a huge gap between their strength. This guy doesn't seem to be very smart. His cultivation is clearly inferior to others, yet he insists on acting like a hero. Let's see if he can still be as arrogant as before when he is beaten down later. The white-clothed young man standing at the back of the hall muttered to himself sinisterly. He was now very displeased with Zhuowen. In his opinion, if it weren't for Zhuowen's appearance, he wouldn't have made a fool of himself in front of the girl in the red dress and their relationship would become so terrible. At this moment, he couldn't wait for Zhuowen to die at Lu Jiwen's hands. Boom! The densely packed earth spikes, which were like raindrops, fiercely bombarded the figure. In the end, countless earth spikes formed a small hill on the spot where Zhuowen had just been standing. Overconfident dog. Your strength is still so weak. With such little strength, you want to destroy our Lu family? What a joke! Lu Jiwen said indifferently as he stared at the small hill in front of him. His eyes were filled with coldness. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he heard the sound of wind being torn apart behind him. Then, a light voice suddenly entered his ears. I should be the one saying this. Your earth-splitting seal wasn't very good just now. It didn't even touch the corner of my clothes. But now, it's time for me to return the favor. Lu Jiwen's pupils shrank. Soon after, he felt the air flow behind him rapidly. He suddenly turned his head and saw Zhuowen's sinister smile. Then, he saw a huge blade that was constantly enlarging in front of him. Bang! The dragon vein saber was like a rough door plank. With a tyrannical aura, it viciously smashed into Lu Jiwen's face. With a dull sound, Lu Jiwen flew out in an extremely embarrassing posture. In mid-air, blood mixed with many teeth splattered out. After drawing a parabola in the air, Lu Jiwen heavily collided with a pillar in the hall. His entire body was embedded in the pillar made of bluestone. In an instant, the hall became silent. Han Shui rubbed her eyes hard. When she saw that the figure embedded in the pillar was indeed Lu Jiwen, a trace of astonishment gradually rose in her beautiful eyes. Her beautiful eyes wandered as she stared at the tall figure in the hall. He was holding the dragon vein saber and standing there quietly. His expression was serene and he was unscathed. The astonishment in her eyes instantly turned into sluggishness. When did this guy become so strong? Han Shui muttered to herself. She still felt a little dizzy. Her gaze lingered on the thin figure of the youth for a long time. Han Shui still remembered the first time she met the youth in front of her. The youth's cultivation was lower than hers. However, when the youth appeared in front of her again, not only was his cultivation far superior to hers, but he was even able to easily defeat a stage 1 corporeal Yang warrior in one move. This kind of strength, this kind of talent, and this kind of terrifying advancement speed, even Han Shui could not help but feel a chill in her heart. The youth in front of her was too abnormal. The white-clothed youth, who originally had some resentment towards Zhuowen, secretly looked at Lu Jiwen, who was coughing up blood on the pillar. He lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Zhuowen. He also finally knew how terrifying the youth in front of him was. Han Yu and Uncle Feng Yu's eyes were filled with astonishment and joy. Naturally, Zhuowen defeating Lu Jiwen was the result they had hoped for. On the other hand, the beautiful eyes of the red-dressed girl were filled with fanatical worship. From the moment Zhuowen appeared, her gaze basically did not leave Zhuowen's figure. Clang! 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 The shackles on Han Shui and the other 4 people were also broken. Zhuowen, thank you so much this time. Han Shui's eyes were filled with gratitude as she came in front of Zhuowen and said with a smile. Zhuowen waved his hand and immediately came in front of Lu Jiwen, who was on the pillar. His indifferent eyes coldly examined Lu Jiwen, who was on the pillar. In fact, when he entered the Lu family, he realized that the Lu family had pitifully few people. Moreover, the leader of the Lu family seemed to be Lu Jiwen alone. The strongest person, Lu Jitian, was nowhere to be seen. The strange phenomenon of the Lu family made Zhuowen even more suspicious. At the same time, an inexplicable sense of foreboding rose in his heart. How did the Lu family's people become so few? Where is your big brother Lu Jitian? Zhuowen glanced at Lu Jiwen and asked indifferently. He. My big brother. He has already gone to Rattan Armor City. If there are no accidents, your Zhuowen family will probably be exterminated today. Ha! Lu Jiwen laughed wildly. What a joke! Our Zhuo family is one of the 3 great families in Rattan Armor City. Do you think a mere Lu family can exterminate us? Zhuowen sneered. He. Our Lu family's strength is not what you see on the surface. You probably don't know that our Lu family still has an ancestor. Our ancestor is a figure from 1,000 years ago. It is said that his strength is about to reach the Zhao King realm. With our ancestor and the Wang family's cooperation, can your Zhuo family really withstand it? Lu Jiwen's face was full of mockery and the corner of his mouth was full of arrogance. When Zhuowen heard this, his face immediately turned ugly. If what Lu Jiwen said was true, then the Lu family also had an expert who was half a step into the Zhao King realm. In addition to the Wang family, which was originally stronger than the Zhuo family was really in danger. Lord Guyutian and Master Kuraki are still in Rattan Armor City. They won't let you do whatever you want. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Ha! Zhuowen, don't hold on to your wishful thinking anymore. Do you think we won't consider Guyutian and Master Kuraki? Today, Guyutian and Master Kuraki coincidentally went to the county city to participate in a festival, so these 2 experts aren't in the city. Therefore, no one will help your Zhuo family. Lu Jiwen sneered. Zhuowen's face darkened. If Guyutian and Master Kuraki weren't in Rattan Armor City, then the Zhuo family would be isolated and helpless. Just as Zhuowen was lost in thought, a cold light flashed in Lu Jiwen's eyes. His right hand formed into a claw and surging elemental energy suddenly turned into a giant claw. He fiercely swung it towards the top of Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen! Not only will your family be destroyed, but you will also die here. Go to hell. Lu Jiwen's eyes were filled with madness. Boom! When the elemental energy claw was about an inch away from Zhuowen's head, it couldn't go any further. It was as if there was a layer of barrier blocking the elemental energy claw. The crazed look in Lu Jiwen's eyes suddenly froze. Traces of astonishment gradually rose on his face. Mind power. You're an Arcana master. Lu Jiwen cried out in shock when he felt the strange energy in front of Zhuowen. Before you die, let me tell you a secret. Actually, my strongest point now isn't my martial strength, but my mind power. Chapter 138. Second rank Lu Jiwen's pupils constricted as he stared at the approaching mind storm. He could feel the terrifying energy contained within the mind storm. Damn it! Lu Jiwen cursed as he suddenly propped up his armor. At the same time, the Yuan power in his body poured out and formed a Yuan power wall in front of him. He wanted to completely block the spiritual storm. Rumble. The mental energy storm violently slammed into the Yuan power wall. A thunderous boom instantly sounded out. Soon after, Lu Jiwen was shocked to discover that the Yuan power wall that he had condensed with all his strength was actually crumbling inch by inch under the impact of the mental energy storm, as if it was made of paper. In the end, the elemental energy wall was crushed by the mind storm and turned into a speck of light. The mind storm's momentum did not diminish as it continued to sweep towards Lu Jiwen. How can this spiritual energy be so powerful? Could it be that you're a second-rank arcana master? Lu Jiwen's expression finally changed when he saw the consciousness storm sweeping towards him. He didn't expect Zhuowen's spiritual force to have reached the second rank. In other words, Zhuowen was a respected second-rank arcana master. One had to know that arcana masters were highly respected in the Qing Xian Empire. Even a first-rank arcana master could receive special treatment from the empire, let alone a second-rank arcana master. Moreover, Zhuowen was only 15 or 16 years old. The fact that he was able to become a second-grade arcana master at such a young age was a testament to his terrifying talent. Lu Jiwen could imagine that if Zhuowen was allowed to continue developing, he would definitely reach a terrifying level in the field of arcana. When Lu Jiwen thought of this possibility, a bitter smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. His eyes revealed a trace of regret. He knew that the Lu family had offended someone they should not have offended. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lu Jiwen was instantly engulfed by the storm. All they could hear was a shrill scream that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. The scream only lasted for a while before it abruptly stopped. The powerful might of the mental energy storm caused the entire hall to tremble. Soon after, under the horrified gazes of Han Shui and the rest, the entire hall began to show signs of collapsing under the storm. Go! This place is about to collapse. Han Shui made a prompt decision. She immediately led a few people out of the hall. The moment the 5 of them walked out of the hall, the Lu family's hall was turned into ruins by the raging storm. It was a complete mess as far as the eye could see. A figure stood quietly above the mental energy storm. Han Shui and the other 4 lifted their heads to look at the figure above the storm. Their eyes revealed a trace of respect. However, when Zhuowen revealed his powerful mind attribute, Han Shui and the others were still stunned. They never expected Zhuowen to be an arcana master, and a grade 2 one at that. Originally, they thought that Zhuowen's martial arts talent was already terrifying enough, but now, the mental power talent he displayed was even more terrifying. As they stared at the figure in the mental energy storm in the sky once again, Han Shui and the other 4 suddenly gave the same evaluation in their hearts. This fellow was simply a monster. Even the white-clothed young man, who originally did not like Zhuowen, was completely shocked by the terrifying talent that Zhuowen had displayed. Not far from the Lu family, there was a huge campsite. Mercenaries in strange clothes gathered in the campsite. In the middle of the campsite was a rather luxurious and huge tent. This campsite was the headquarters of the Mercenary Alliance. The most luxurious tent in the middle of the campsite was the residence of the leader of the Mercenary Alliance, Qian Shang. At this moment, a slender and muscular figure stood quietly at the top of the tent. This figure was the leader of the Mercenary Alliance, Qian Shang. Qian Shang's eagle-like eyes were fixed on the huge mental energy storm not far away. The storm was not unfamiliar to him. It was the Lu family. Reporting to my lord, I have already investigated what happened in the Lu family. It is said that a young man barged into the Lu family alone and turned the entire Lu family upside down. Even Lu Jiwen was killed by him. A mercenary rushed to the top of the tent and reported with one knee on the ground. A young man. It seems that the young man who caused havoc in the Lu family should be Zhuowen. I didn't expect the rumor that Zhuowen came out of the heaven fiend Dark Eye alone to be true, Qian Shang said with his hands behind his back, his eyes shining. Even Qian Shang felt that the news of Zhuowen coming out of the heaven fiend Dark Eye was somewhat unbelievable. The heaven fiend Dark Eye was a famous place of death in the Annihilation Forest. Even warriors of the Yang realm would not survive if they entered. At that time, Zhuowen was only in the first stage of the Yin Void realm. It was already a miracle that he could survive and come out alive. Perhaps the items in the Ultimate Expert's interspatial bag have already exceeded our expectations. I think that the young man must have relied on the treasures in the bag to get out of the heaven fiend Dark Eye. It is also because of the treasures in the bag that his strength increased greatly. Regardless of. Speaking of this, Qian Shang's mouth revealed a trace of a greedy smile. He thought to himself, however, those treasures will still fall into my hands in the end. Aning. Take all our brothers and follow me to the Lu family immediately. Qian Shang suddenly glanced at the mercenaries behind him and said with some urgency. Sir, do you want to take all our brothers? Aning asked, puzzled. In his opinion, wasn't it a bit of a fuss to take all the mercenaries of the mercenary union to deal with a young man? Yes. The young man we are facing this time is not simple. To tell you the truth, the young man who caused havoc in the Lu family is the Zhuowen who was forced into the heaven fiend Dark Eye by me, Lu Jitian, and Lu Jiwen 2 months ago. The fact that he was able to come out of the heaven fiend Dark Eye means that he is not simple, Qian Shang said with a serious expression. When Aning heard this, his body could not help but tremble. His eyes suddenly became a little surprised. He did not expect that the young man who caused havoc in the Lu family was the Zhuowen who had been the talk of Luchuan town for the past 2 months. I will go and gather our brothers now. Aning bowed and nodded. Then, he disappeared from the top of the tent. Zhuowen, since you have already appeared, don't even think about running away. Qian Shang's eyes were full of coldness as he stared at the storm in the distance. Above the Lu family, the mental energy storm gradually dissipated. Zhuowen's figure also landed on the ground. Zhuowen. I didn't know that your mental energy cultivation was so high. When we first met, you actually hid it from us. Do you not treat us as friends anymore? When they saw that Zhuowen had landed, Han Shui and the other 4 gathered around Zhuowen. Among them, Han Shui rolled her eyes at Zhuowen and pretended to be angry. Zhuowen was stunned. When he saw the anger on Han Shui's charming face, a bitter smile appeared on his face. He spread out his hands like a hoodlum and said, I didn't hide it from you back then. At that time, I had yet to come into contact with mental energy. I only started cultivating mental energy after we parted ways. Speaking of which, I have cultivated mental energy for less than a year. Hiss. Zhuowen's somewhat innocent explanation immediately caused Han Shui and the other 4 to gasp. Then, they all looked at the innocent young man in front of them as if they were looking at a monster. In less than a year, his mental energy had reached the 2nd grade. Although Han Shui didn't know much about Arcana Masters, she knew that the difficulty of cultivating mental energy for Arcana Masters was much higher than for cultivators. The strength of a 2nd-grade Arcana Master was comparable to a powerful cultivator at the corporeal Yang stage. Han Shui couldn't imagine how the young man in front of her cultivated to be so abnormal. Looking again at the innocent young man in front of her, the corner of Han Shui's mouth twitched involuntarily. In the end, she sighed dejectedly. She knew that if she compared herself to the young man in front of her, she would only be asking for a beating. Now that the Lu family is basically empty, I don't think anyone will find trouble with your Lu Yan mercenary group in the future. Now, I should hurry back to Rattan Armor City. According to Lu Jiwen, the ancestor of the Lu family and the head of the family, Lu Jitian, have already joined forces with the Wang family to deal with our Zhuo family. I'm afraid I can't stay here for long. Zhuowen looked deeply at Han Shui, who had a fiery figure in front of him. His gaze lingered on her sexy buttocks for a while before he naturally shifted his gaze away and said helplessly. Han Shui also noticed Zhuowen's gaze just now. Although her pretty face was a little shy, her expression was not ambiguous. When she met Zhuowen's gaze, she raised her head and puffed out her chest, appearing extremely seductive. However, Zhuowen's next words caused a trace of disappointment to appear in Han Shui's eyes. Is that so? Then you have to be careful. Whether it is the Lu family or the Wang family, they are not easy to deal with. Han Shui lowered her head and said somewhat sadly. Zhuowen chuckled. Just as he was about to reply, he suddenly felt a warm body pounce into his embrace. His face immediately froze. Zhuowen. Thank you. You have saved our Lu Yan mercenary group time and time again. Our Lu Yan mercenary group will never forget what you have done for us. Therefore, I hope that nothing will happen to you when you return to Rattan Armor City this time. A gentle voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's ear, causing his entire body to tremble and go numb. Zhuowen only felt the delicate body in his embrace tremble. Soon after, Han Shui left Zhuowen's embrace with a lovable smile. However, her pretty face was completely red. Seeing the rebuke in Han Shui's beautiful eyes, Zhuowen laughed awkwardly. Soon after, he waved goodbye to the 5 people and leaped, intending to leave this place. Swoosh! Chapter 139. It is impossible to escape. A cold light flashed past, and the sound of wind breaking was almost inaudible. If one didn't listen carefully, they wouldn't be able to hear the slightest sound. Just as the cold light was about to approach Zhuowen, Zhuowen twisted his waist and finally dodged the attack at a rather strange angle. Clang! A palm-sized dagger was suddenly nailed into the wall behind Zhuowen. Gazing at the dagger on the wall, Zhuowen stopped in his tracks. His eyes narrowed as he said indifferently, "Who is playing tricks? Don't tell me you don't dare to show yourself." Ha! Zhuowen, it seems that your cultivation has increased quite rapidly in the 2 months that we haven't seen each other. Now he has reached level 8 of the Yin Void realm. A dark and cold laughter was suddenly transmitted from outside the courtyard. Immediately, numerous locust-like densely packed human figures suddenly appeared in the surroundings, surrounding the entire Lu clan's courtyard until not even a drop of water could pass through. A tall and sturdy middle-aged man slowly walked out from the front of the densely packed crowd. He looked down at Zhuowen from a commanding position. 1,000 deaths? I haven't even gone to look for you, yet you've come knocking on my door. However, I'm in a hurry today, so you'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, your mercenary union will follow in the footsteps of the Lu family. Zhuowen's gaze focused on Qian Shang as he spoke coldly. The Lu clan only has that piece of trash, Lu Jiwen, holding the fort. It's not a big deal that you've taken down the Lu clan. Do you think that you've completely destroyed the Lu clan just because you've killed Lu Jiwen? I'm afraid that when Lu Jitian returns, your fate will be very miserable. Actually, it's not impossible for me to let you go. As long as you give me the Qiankuan bag that you snatched that day, then I swear in the name of the Mercenary Alliance's leader that I won't touch a single hair on your head. Qian Shang crossed his arms in front of his chest, his face full of confidence. In his opinion, even if Zhuowen could kill Lu Jiwen, it was not a big deal. After all, Lu Jiwen was only at level 1 of the corporeal Yang realm, while Qian Shang's cultivation was much higher than Lu Jiwen's. Apart from that, he had also brought along all the members of the Mercenary Alliance. Therefore, from his point of view, Zhuowen would not be able to escape this time, and that Supreme Expert's treasure would also belong to him. When he thought about how Zhuowen had relied on that treasure to increase his strength so much in such a short period of time, a greedy expression involuntarily appeared on Qian Shang's face. Zhuowen frowned slightly, and a trace of impatience appeared on his face. Right now, he was worried about the Zhuo family in Vine Armor City. He had no time to waste with Qian Shang here. Since you want to die, then don't blame me for being merciless. The impatience on Zhuo Wen's face grew even denser. Soon after, before Qian Shang could open his mouth again, Zhuo Wen's foot suddenly stomped on the ground and his entire body shot towards Qian Shang like an arrow released from a bow. What an arrogant brat! I've already given you a chance. Since you don't know how to grasp it, then you can go to hell. Qian Shang was also angered by Zhuo Wen's impatient attitude. His right hand suddenly grasped at the air, and a huge palm that was dozens of feet wide tore through the air. Soon after, it violently slammed towards Zhuowen. The powerful yuan power undulations caused the surrounding cultivators to involuntarily retreat a dozen steps. Facing the mountain-like palm, Zhuowen was awe-inspiring and fearless. With a gentle clench of his right hand, the icy blue symbol on the back of his hand suddenly lit up. Soon after, a berserk flow of cold air swept out from the symbol. This cold current was the one that Zhuowen had absorbed from the Heaven Fiend Underworld Eye. There were hundreds and thousands of similar cold currents in the ice rune. Rumble. The cold current was like a pillar that wanted to pierce the heavens. It violently swept towards the large yuan power hand in the air. Then, the two violently collided in front of everyone's eyes. A light that was like a scorching sun suddenly rose from the air. The entire Luchuan town violently shook a few times from the collision. This violent sound instantly attracted the attention of all the cultivators in Luchuan town. When these cultivators looked towards the huge ball of light in the air, a trace of disbelief appeared on their faces. What a powerful force! Who is the one who created this kind of energy? That direction seems to be where the Lu family is. Looks like something incredible has happened to the Lu family. Let's go. Let's go over and see what happened to the Lu family that caused such a huge commotion. After the clamor, all the cultivators in Luchuan town rushed towards the Lu family like a swarm of locusts. Boom! When the light in the sky gradually faded away, everyone was shocked to find that the giant hand of Yuan Qi, which was hundreds of feet in size, had actually collapsed under the attack of a cold air current that was like a hurricane, breaking apart inch by inch. Pfft! Qian Shang suddenly retreated more than 10 steps and spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared at the calm-looking youth not far away, and his expression finally turned ugly. He suddenly felt that he had been too naive. It seemed that Zhuowen was not as simple as he had expected. At the same time that Qian Shang's chest retreated, countless cultivators from Luchuan town rushed to the periphery of the Lu family's courtyard. The scene of Qian Shang retreating with heavy injuries instantly appeared before their eyes. As they gazed at Qian Shang, who was constantly coughing up blood from his chest, a strange and shocked expression appeared on the faces of the cultivators who had just arrived. Following Qian Shang's line of sight, these cultivators could not help but cast their gazes towards the extremely calm youth on the other side. He is Zhuowen. Yes, this child is Zhuowen. I heard that 2 months ago, this child's cultivation was low and he could only flee miserably when faced with the combined forces of the Mercenary Alliance's leader, Qian Shang, the Lu family's head, Lu Jitian, and the second head, Lu Jiwen. Now, he is able to injure Qian Shang. I never imagined that this child would actually grow to such an extent in a short 2 months. Even Qian Shang is no match for this child. This child is truly terrifying. Numerous discussions suddenly sounded. Soon after, the previously deserted courtyard of the Lu clan instantly became incomparably lively. Countless practitioners without any faction or background gathered their gazes on Zhuowen's body. When Qian Shang heard the discussions around him, his expression immediately turned ugly. His gaze towards Zhuowen was filled with a chilling murderous intent. Zhuowen! You forced me to do this. Only I have the right to possess the treasures on your body. Giving them to you will only be a waste. Brothers, all of you go and capture this child. Whoever captures this child will be rewarded with a grade 3 elixir. Zhuowen, so what if you are strong? After all, you are only one person while I have hundreds and thousands of subordinates. Qian Shang laughed sinisterly. Soon after, he waved his hand and said, Go. Kill him. Upon receiving Qian Shang's order, the hundreds of mercenaries behind him raised their weapons and fearlessly charged towards Zhuowen. Humph. A human wave tactic. However, this is completely useless against me. Zhuowen coldly snorted. The ice rune on his right hand shone even brighter. Soon after, hundreds and thousands of endless streams of cold air suddenly swept out from the rune, transforming into a huge cold current in the entire space. Ah! A blood-curdling scream sounded out as the nearest 100 mercenaries were immediately swept up by the cold current. Under the extremely powerful pressure of the cold current, these mercenaries were instantly crushed. Countless pieces of blood mixed with the remnants of their internal organs fell from the cold current. In an instant, the entire space was filled with a strange rain of blood. It was demonic and dazzling. Nearly 100 mercenaries were instantly killed, causing the remaining mercenaries to tremble with fear. Their hearts were suddenly filled with fear as they all stopped in their tracks, wanting to change directions and escape. Looking at the mercenaries who wanted to escape, the corners of Zhuowen's mouth revealed a sinister smile. Soon after, the huge cold current once again split into hundreds of small cold currents. The cold currents were like raindrops as they swept towards the fleeing mercenaries. Mournful screams sounded out one after another. Under the endless cold currents, the bodies of the remaining mercenaries were completely crushed. In an instant, the entire courtyard turned into a bloodbath as blood practically covered the entire ground. The strong smell of blood almost filled the entire courtyard. In an instant, the courtyard became incomparably silent. Regardless of whether it was Han Shui and the other four in the courtyard, or Qian Shang, whose smile had already frozen, or the other practitioners outside the courtyard who had been attracted by the battle, all of them had tacitly fallen into silence at this moment. When the silence reached the point where it was almost deathly silent, trembling sounds of inhalation rang out one after another in the entire courtyard. Some of the fellows with weaker endurance even vomited on the spot. At this moment, everyone's gazes towards the figure in the rain of blood were filled with reverence and fear. They did not expect that the young man in front of them would be so ruthless. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of mercenaries were completely annihilated without leaving behind any bones. No. This was the full strength of our mercenary alliance. You actually killed all of them. Zhuowen, you bastard. Today, I will kill you. A somewhat deranged voice suddenly sounded out. Soon after, Qian Shang's eyes were crimson red as he rushed towards Zhuowen. The yuan power in his body was urged without any regard for his life, as if he wanted to squeeze himself dry. Using the words you just said, I have already given you a chance. However, you did not grasp it. Therefore, who can you blame for all of this? Zhuowen shook his head slightly. Soon after, the ice rune on the back of his right hand lit up once again. Following which, the cold current that appeared in the air above instantly transformed into an icy blue fist that viciously punched towards Qian Shang. Boom! You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.